Sorry. I'll wait for Councillor Mann. I advise this meeting is being streamed live to the internet. All those present should refrain from making any defamatory statements, and upon joining these online meetings, you accept the condition that your image may be recorded and streamed to the internet, as well as being retained in the archive of the recorded council meetings and standing committee meetings. I now officially open the 2024 ordinary council meeting, time being 5:30 p.m. Can I start with the prayer, please, Councillor Goff?
O God, for good, we pray through Jesus Christ our Lord. Amen.
Thank you, Councillor Goff. Can I have acknowledgement of country, please, Councillor Burns?
Thank you. I'd like to acknowledge the Wiradjuri people who are the traditional custodians of the land. I'd also like to pay respect to the elders past, present and emerging of the Wiradjuri nation and extend that respect to other Aboriginal people from other nations who are present. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Burns. Next item on the agenda is leave of absence. I have a leave of absence request from Councillor Etheridge. Have someone move that way, please. Thank you, Councillor Black, seconded by Councillor Mann. Any discussion or debate, councillors? There being none, I put that. All those in favour? Against? Declare that carried. Conflict of interest, CCL 24/38. Conflicts of interest to declare. I'll start off with Councillor Goff. Thank you.
Thank you. In the standing committee meeting, CCC 24/3, non-pecuniary less than significant, as my business is involved in Dream Festival for the last 5 years. And then item 24/61, as I'm on the board of the Wellington Family Domestic Violence Collective.
Thank you, Councillor Goff.
And I will leave the room, sorry.
Oh, sorry. Thank you. Councillor Chowdhury.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I have a in-standing committee meeting, CCC 24/3, Dream Festival and beyond. I'm been part of Wellington, Oriscon, and non-significant less than non-pecuniary less than significant. I'll stay in the room.
Thank you, Councillor Chowdhury. And that's all. Any other conflicts of interest for anyone? No, thank you. Being none, I'll move on to the next item, CCL 24/39, Public Forum. I have one registered speaker at the moment, and so we'll go through that first and then ask for any other speakers. Before we start with Public Forum, there will be 5 minutes available to the first speaker and then every subsequent speaker after that. At 4 minutes 30, I shall ding a bell or hit a glass, so you'll know that that's 4 minutes 30. And at 5 minutes, I'll ask you to stop speaking. So the first registered speaker is Mr. Andrew Peden, speaking on behalf of the Dubbo Stock and Station Agents. Thank you, Mr. Peden.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen of the council and the staff. Yes, my name is Andrew Peden. I represent I'm one of the member agents of the Dubbo Stock and Station Agents Association. I'd like to thank you all for the opportunity to speak today. We're here this evening. We understand there's a vote to take place this evening on the future of the Dubbo regional livestock markets. Now, these sale yards have been in existence for more than 60 years. It's something that's been carried on by by agents and council over that period of time, and I think very successfully. We would like to see it remain run by the council with the help of the Stock and Station Agents Association. We've got a great association, I believe, with council. The sale yards contributes greatly to the economy of Dubbo and surrounding area. We draw livestock from all points throughout Australia, which is quite incredible, really. And there's quite a lot of livestock come past other major selling centres to come to Dubbo. So Dubbo Sale Yards is a recognised livestock market and has been for a long, long time. And we're here, and I'm pleased to say that I have some of my fellow agents here, directors of other businesses here to support me here this afternoon. And we're all of the belief that we would like to see the council remain operating that sale yards, that facility. We think they do a great job and also working in with the agents. We think it's a very successful business and a great contributor to this whole economy of Dubbo and the surrounding area. It's recognised Australia-wide as one of the leading markets, which a lot of work has gone on over the previous years to establish that. And just excuse me, we'd like to see that remain the same, but we think the best move is for council to remain operating that yard, that facility under its own steam. Obviously, as I've said, you know, with the work that the agents put in bringing livestock to the centre, and we think, you know, council does a wonderful job at doing that, and we're here in support, and we want to see this facility continue and continue to operate in the manner that it does. It just contributes greatly to the whole economy, and we don't want to see it. We don't want to see it sold. We want it to remain in the hands of the public. We don't think it's in the best interest for anything like that to happen. That's why we want council to remain running that facility. That it's the future. It has a great future, the sale yards. I think we need to work together, both agents and council, to keep this going. We find other online marketing platforms competing against this facility, and I think we really need to work together and to keep this thing going, this business going, keep it going, you know, for future generations. And I really and truly believe in this facility. I can't say much more than that, but we just hope that you give favourable consideration to keeping it run by yourselves. We think you're doing a great job. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Peden. As per our code of meeting practice, we still have time left in our public forum. So if there's anyone else that would like to come forward and speak, the same rules apply as Mr. Peden. It's 5 minutes available to speak on a topic, preferably one in the agenda or anything that's involving council. Okay, being no further.
Good evening,
Thank you.
members of the
So just
council.
start with your name, please, so the public can hear your name, and then you've got 5 minutes. Thank you.
Thank you. My name is Di Clifford, and I'm very pleased to be able to talk to all the members of Dubbo Regional Council. And I just wanted to know what the latest thoughts of the council was regarding the Dream Festival, which has been extremely successful over many years now. And I'm just thinking that it's always an opportunity to promote Dubbo and what it offers. And we've had in the past attendees for various events from around central New South Wales and way beyond. I ran an event a while back, and there was even a bloke who came to sing with me from Victoria. So it is something that does attract attention. People come, have a great time, go away thinking, well, that was good, that was a bit different, that was Dubbo, we'll have to come back. So I would just like to think that members of our council will look upon continuing with the Dream Festival as a great idea, a great investment in Dubbo now and in the future. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Clifford. So again, if there's anyone else that would like to come forward and speak at public forum, you're more than welcome to. Otherwise, I'll move on. Thank you for the two speakers tonight. Next item is CCL 24/40, confirmation of minutes. Can someone move that way, please? Thank you, Councillor Wright, seconded by Councillor Goff. Any discussion or debate, councillors? There being none, I put that. All those in favour? Against? Declare that carried. Next item is CCL 24/41, mayoral appointments and meetings. Have someone move that way, please. Thank you, Councillor Ivey, seconded by Councillor Chowdhury. Any discussion or debate, councillors? Councillor Ivey.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I noticed in that your list of appointments, I think it was on the 1st of February, that you met or talked to a person about GoGet, the car sharing concept, and I just wondered what the results of that were, in particular because of some of the earlier discussions I know that we'd had at the Wellington Town Committee about the possible need for or opportunity to establish some sort of a car sharing arrangement whereby people could fly into Dubbo and visit Mudgee, Orange, Wellington, perhaps even Bathurst. Was there any detailed discussion along those lines, or what were the point of the meeting?
Yeah, thank you, Councillor Ivey, and certainly 1st of February. I wasn't sure exactly the date, but I've just had a quick look there on the mayoral appointment, so 1st of February. That was actually prompted by the discussion at the Wellington Town Committee, because there was some discussion around GoGet, or that similar type of car sharing service. So I reached out to GoGet to ask them about what their metrics were, what it would be a trigger for them to bring something like GoGet into a community like Dubbo. It was really a discussion about the potential, and then I sent off an email to give them more details around some of the metrics of population, the drawing population, the numbers through our airport, that type of thing. And it was really an initial discussion, an invitation to come and look at Dubbo, and really just to make sure that Dubbo was on their radar to consider. No definite outcomes at this stage, and I haven't received any request to come out and actually have a look around. But I suppose the main thing from their perspective is they've got certain metrics, and I thought that drawing population, the airport numbers, and the population would be the main metrics there. So we'll wait and see if anything happens from that. I'll follow up again probably in another month or so's time if nothing else has come back. But I think there's certainly potential there for that. Thank you, Councillor Ivey. Anything else? Sorry, Councillor Ivey, on that? No. Any other questions or comments, councillors? There being none, I put that. All those in favour? Against? Declare that carried. Next item is CCL 24/42, monthly reporting snapshot for councillors. Have someone move that way, please. Thank you, Councillor Wright, seconded by Councillor Burns. Any discussion or debate, councillors? Councillor Wright.
Thanks, Mr. Mayor. Actually, I enjoy reading that report each month. It's a nice, clear, easy one. You can see some ebbs and flows and of those varying statistics as they sort of move through seasonal changes. But there was one that just sparked my attention, grabbed my attention, and it's actually on page 47 of that report of the Dubbo Regional Theatre and Convention set of visitors per month. They all look pretty steady, and I know we're going back a little bit. When I look at January 2023, and there were 3 visitors for the month, but there was 3,500 the month before and 3,500, nearly 4,000 the month after. The statistic itself just grabbed me. I just wanted to maybe ask or get a bit of clarity on that. 3 people for the month of January, the whole month in 2023.
Thank you, Councillor Wright. I did actually notice that myself, and I saw January this year was 616, so it improved, but 3 seemed unusual. Mr. CEO, through you.
To Ms. Christoph.
Ms. Christoph, thank you, Ms. Christoph.
Thank you. So generally January is the quietest month of the year. It's what's called the dark period, and we don't have any shows or events, and it's a time for the staff to conduct their annual maintenance, carpet cleaning, pest control, etc. I do agree that 3 seems quite low because the box office is still open and we do have people coming in. So we are looking at installing door counters, which will give us a much easier and accurate way of recording attendances. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Christoph. Councillor Wright, anything further on that?
No, thank you. The dark hour, the dark month.
Dark month, yes. Anything further, councillors? Councillor Shattery.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. It's really a very handy report. I really enjoy too. So I have a question through you, Mr. Mayor, for Aquatic Centre, like a visitor information. I can see clearly 2022-23 compared to 23 and 4. September and October there was a quite large amount of visitor, like a visited Aquatic Centre. But November, December, January, which is the peak summer, really dropped. Is there any reason why that been dropped?
Thank you, Councillor Shattery. I'll go through Mr. Wood to Mr. Arms.
Certainly over the last 5 or so weeks, there's the pool has been, certainly the Dubbo pool has been accommodating 28 carnivals, which really do take up a lot of the pool time. And so generally during the carnival season, you do see a reduction in regular visitors because their lane, as it were, is taken up by the carnival. So that's a big reason, I would say, for the latest results. I say over the 4-year average, where the current attendance is pretty well bang on the 4-year average. Last year was a really good season for whatever reason, but the previous 2 were similar to the year we're seeing now.
Thank you, Mr. Arms. So just to go further with Councillor Shattery's question, the school carnivals don't really account for the figures there because they're not February there. But I think your point is that if we went back to the previous year, 23,000 versus 24,000, 18,000 versus 22, 13 versus 10, they're much more in line. So it may well have been that last season was particularly good. But yeah, certainly lower than last season. So I'm not sure if that helps you with your answer, Councillor Shattery.
Yes, that's the.
Yep, thank you. Any further questions or debate, councillors? No, there being none, I put that. All those in favour? Against? Declare that carried. Next item is CCO 24/43, investment under section 625 of the Local Government Act. If someone move that, please. Thank you, Councillor Wright, seconded by Councillor Wells. Any discussion or debate on that? There being
No, thank
Councillor
you.
Wright, yep. There being none, I put that. All those in favour? Against? Declare that carried. Next item is CCO 24/44, report of the Infrastructure Planning and Environment Committee. Now, just checking if we, thank you. I just wanted to see if there had any exceptions there. Okay, yeah, thank you. Right, yeah, so I'll just start off with the mover of that. Sorry, someone move that for me. Infrastructure Planning, Councillor Wright moved and seconded by Councillor Byrne. Sorry. No, but I'm going to move it and he's going to save and accept.
So you move the paper and then, but you have to move it and save and accept, so you don't consider it.
That's right. But, sorry, so moved the paper, save and accept.
Save and accept, Mr.
Yes.
Mayor, if I can, IPSC 24/11 of that particular report.
Right, that's fine. Thank you very much. And a second for that was Councillor Wells. Discussion or debate on the rest of the paper, councillors? There being none, I put that. All those in favour? Against? Declare that carried. Now that item has been saved and accepted, obviously. We'll move to the confidential component of that. So we won't deal with that now. We'll deal with that in the confidential section. Now, the next one is the report of the Culture and Community Committee meeting. So can I have someone move that, please? Councillor Goff, seconded by Councillor Chowdhury. And you're moving that, save and accept.
Yes.
Do-
It's a dream. I wasn't given.
That's the numbers.
Saving six. Report of the Culture Community Committee meeting to be adopted, save and accept item CCC 24/3 and CCC 24/13. CCC 24/16.
Thank you. So that's your item, save and accept. Any other save and accept items, councillors? No? So I've got the Culture and Community Committee meeting, the rest of the committee. Any other discussion or debate on the rest of the committee? Being none, I put that. All those in favour? Against? Declare that carried. And so of those three items, Councillor Goff, I'll leave the CCC 24/16 to the confidential session. But if you would like to move CCC 24/3, please, and then we'll deal with that one separately.
Sure. Hang on. I've lost it.
And are you moving what's
Yes.
in the papers?
Dream.
Are you moving the recommendation that's there?
I am.
Okay.
Yes.
Thank you. Okay, so move CCC 24/3. Have someone second that, please. Thank you, Councillor Chowdhury. Councillor Goff, do you wish to speak to that motion?
No, thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Okay, discussion or debate, councillors? Councillor Wells.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just confirming we're speaking on the Dream Festival, please. Okay. Just a question about what I'm hearing from community is what does in-kind support look like from council? Can we get a bit more of an idea through you, Mr.
Sorry,
Chair?
my apologies, Councillor Wells. My mistake. I just need to get those declarations of conflicts done again.
Oh,
Sorry.
okay. Sorry.
Yep. So, Councillor Goff, can I just get your declaration again, please?
A non-pecuniary, less than significant interest, as my business has worked with the Dream Festival for the last 5 years, and I'll stay in the room.
Thank you, Councillor Goff. Councillor Chowdhury, to your declaration, please.
Non-pecuniary less than significant. I was the member for Oriscon volunteer. I'm staying in the room. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Chowdhury. Sorry, my apologies, Councillor Wells. So back to you to debate that one again. Sorry.
Not about just a query, please. Just curious about some of the motion and what I'm hearing from communities is what does in-kind support look like from DRC, please?
Thank you, Councillor Wells. I'll go with you, Mr Wood, to Mr Arms.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So in-kind support is what we're structured for as a council. Our regional events team does this on a daily basis right across the broad spectrum of events that come our way, that we support, that we attract and support. That is the focus of our unit. So it's really about building capacity and assisting organisers with the management and rolling out of their events, assisting them with with pathways through the council approval systems and accessing expertise within the council structure. For example, traffic guidance schemes is a really good example of how we really provide an access to that specialised information and direct them in the right way to minimise waste of time. So in terms of support and in-kind support, that's what we're talking about. It's general event knowledge and expertise to ensure a more efficient rolling out from the event organiser.
Thank you, Mr. Arms. I'll ask Mr. Wood to just add to that.
Yeah, and certainly something a couple of councils raised, they were concerned about if they get sponsorship dollars and they're a volunteer committee, that sometimes an assistance we can be, we're effectively the banker of the sponsorship dollars, and we hold that in a trust account, so it's not going to general revenue, but we can manage that if they need that capability as well. So we don't do that for every event, obviously, but given this is a transition from a council run to a community run, that's an in-kind service we provide as well.
That satisfy that, Councillor Wells?
Am I able to ask another question?
Yeah, certainly.
So another question I think we asked quite some time ago is, what does the income look like from the Dream Festival? We know that there's a significant amount of stall holders that have to pay a fee to have their stall there. What does that look like, and what happens to that when?
Thank you, Councillor Wells. I'll go through Mr. Wood.
Yep, I'll say it's around
Mr. Wood.
$10,000 for stallholder fees, thereabouts. And that, I guess that goes into offsetting some of the operational costs. It doesn't make a profit per se, but combine that type of income for events, and whether that's other ticketed events, then combine that with sponsorship dollars. The aim is to get it to at least revenue neutral without trying to make a profit.
Thank you, Mr. Wood. Further, Councillor Wells? No, thank you. Other questions or debate, councillors? Is Councillor Showery's hand up? Yep.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I would like to bring some amendment on the motion.
Thank you. Can you read the amendment out, please, Councillor Showery?
So I'll read the amendment as below. The number 1, that the Chief Executive Officer facilitate an expression of interest process to the determine of a community group or other body to deliver the Dream Festival. Number 2, the council provide funding support of $40,000 to the community group or body for the organization, planning and deliver of the Dream Festival based on council procurement practice and appropriate funding conditions set by council. Number 3, that council provide event support in line with standard practice in addition to the 40,000 grant. Thank you.
So just for my clarification there, Councillor Showery, I was watching there as you went, it's just removing the two words a maximum. So
Yes.
basically changing it from a maximum of $40,000 to $40,000.
Correct.
Yep.
Yep.
So what I'll do for that, if it's okay with you, is I would say your amendment rather than all of that, because that is hard to pull out the change there, just to say the amendment is to remove the words a maximum as the amendment, and then we can debate that. That makes sense? If you're okay with that as the amendment? Yes?
Yep.
Yep. Okay. So the amendment is removing the words a maximum, and can I have a seconder for that, please? Councillor Black. Councillor Showery, do you wish to speak to your amendment?
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Mayor, because I think all of my fellow councillors are already aware of there was a community angst, and tonight also a community member spoke, and this community wants to see that Dream Festival going ahead, but there's some misconception happening within the community groups, like about the funding and the in-kind support they're getting from the council. So through you, Mr. Mayor, I had a couple of questions, if through you, if CEO or someone can answer. That the question is like the community is requesting if they can form 355 section of committee. Can you please explain what is that, and is there viable option for that to make this 355 committee? And the other thing is that in-kind support, if you can kindly give a bit more elaborate, like a in-kind support, like if the committee form, and then whatever the insurance, like when they do that event, if a council can provide that public insurance, and like a traffic management and the park hire, is that gonna costing this $40,000 to that committee? Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Chowdhury. So you've finished speaking to the amendment, and now just a couple of questions. So section 355, just some details on that. And then the in-kind question, in addition to one that Councillor Wells asked, in terms of are there other things you can provide support on? Mr Wood.
Yeah, so Section 355 is the part of the Local Government Act by which council delegates its function to a committee. I would think there's a couple of reasons I would recommend against that. It's too early. We haven't gone out to community to actually get formal interest. So I think what the recommendation from last week is to get an OEI, to get community representatives, arguably locked in to a degree, and then you can work on the governance and the structure and how we deliver it. So I think it is way too early to start setting up a structure on a 355 committee. The other challenge is that it's quite a bureaucratic tool to deliver a committee. You have to run according to the codes of meeting practice to council. Arguably, council, you might vote to have a councillor on it, but it's like a mini council set of committee meeting. You're giving them a delegation to make decisions. I'm not confident that's the right tool to deliver an event. If you look at the Dubbo Touch Carnival, or Dubbo Touch, the New South Wales half the state carnival, because I can't remember the name off it off the top of my head. But that didn't need that formal structure. You had the Dubbo Touch doing what they did. You had council as a partner doing what they do, which included in-kind contributions as well. And that delivered a very effective event. I don't think we need to have a governance-heavy structure like a Section 355 to deliver that. And certainly from a long-held view of Dubbo Regional, then Dubbo City as the predecessing organisation, we haven't had that long history of Section 355. We've found other more effective ways to do things. The other question on insurance, look, we'd have to work out what that is. That's the devil in the detail of the how-to deliver. We would work, once we establish with a committee, and the team led by Craig Arms's area as the relevant director, Mr Arms's area. Again, we work on what we're going to do, and we certainly had some conversations before the committee. We've been conscious not to talk to community pending a council decision to avoid undue influence or being seen that way. Is that we have to, I think, with that community group, redefining what the Dream Festival is. I think over a month, that's really exhausting for a volunteer committee, even in this transition phase. So I think we've got a lot more specification and detail to pull together before we start talking about who's covering public liability insurance. So, but that's something we'll take on notice. In kind, I guess, if it's a council priority, we could look at that, higher fees for parks and things. Again, until we know what that is, I'd be loath to commit to that, but it's something we will work through as well. Meeting rooms, if council's a part of helping organise this, well, meeting rooms such as this one here and things can be provided free of charge in that instance as well. We've just got to be careful that there's lots of events being held. We want to treat everyone equally and ethically. So we've got to be careful, even though this is a council priority, to keep delivering the dream. We don't want to blur the lines because other community groups would like as much assistance as possible as well. So we've just got to tread a fine line as we build what this looks like. It's a long answer to your question.
Further questions on that, Councillor Chowdhury?
Just one last question. So UI process is going to happen if this motion goes tonight. So if not many community groups come to that UI process, what's going to happen in future for Dream Festival? Is that going to be shut down or?
Well, I'm happy to answer that rather than Mr Wood. The process to me would be that we're going out to an EI process. If we get no application to the EI process, then the staff would have to bring that back to council for us to decide what to do with it next. So it wouldn't be a decision for the staff or Mr Wood to make in terms of that. It would need to come back, because if this resolution went through, it would give direction to our staff. If that didn't work out, we'd have to make another decision. Thank you. So to the amendment, basically removing the maximum and saying that it would be $40,000, not a maximum of $40,000. So on that amendment, any other speakers? Councillor Ivey.
Just a query, Mr Mayor. What happens if in the EIO process it comes back and it's very much a shortened Dream Festival? It's perhaps...
So can I stop there? Sorry, Councillor Ivey. So the amendment is that we're removing the words maximum. What we're debating at the moment is the words of maximum. So it's not, we're not really debating the EOI, we're not really debating any parts, it's just the maximum.
Yeah, but I think my question is relevant to this very issue of removing those two words.
Okay, my apologies, I cut in too early.
I think I stand to be corrected. But just say the EO, we come back, And there's a proposal is for a very much shortened, abbreviated Dream Festival, bookended by perhaps 2 weekends, and there's no real need for a full $40,000. What happens there if this motion gets up?
Yeah, so my apologies, you were correct. So absolutely, if we just remove the words maximum, whatever the Dream Festival looked like, if it was a one-night event or a 2-month event, whatever, it would be, according to our resolution, $40,000 would be provided for that. So, and that may well have been the flexibility that was built into that original recommendation that we did 2 weeks ago, was to allow it to a maximum of $40,000. The CEO has his finger poised over his microphone button, which I think he means he wants to say something as well. Mr. Wood.
Thank you for the invitation, Mr. Mayor. So I'll just point out that we aren't handing over a cheque or cash of $40,000. So it's not like it goes and then, you can shrink your event and therefore we keep some cash for next year. So it will be us contributing to funding as the proof and the evidence of required expenditure comes. So there'll be lots of governance around that $40,000. So it's not like where you can just keep spending. There'll be lots of governance around that $40,000. And if they don't spend it, it would remain. I guess what you're saying is you've got an allocation in the budget of $40,000 to go to Dream. It's not up to. In practice, it might realise that. So I'm comfortable that with the right governance, it's public money. We have an obligation to deliver it ethically to this event. We would have those controls in place that it would be spent appropriately. And if there's an underspend, like in any council project, it stays in general revenue for reallocation to other projects and possibly other overruns as they come.
Thank you, Mr. Wood. Councillor Ivey, further questions or discussion on this?
Only just a question. From what Mr. Wood said, I would have thought that's what the original motion said. But
So that sounded like a comment rather than a question. Thank you, Councillor Ivey. Other discussion or debate on the maximum opposed to maximum of as opposed to removing a maximum? No. So, Councillor Goff, as the original mover of the motion, you have a right of reply on the very little that was said during the debate, if you wish to exercise that.
My comment is exactly the same as Councillor Ivey. We're already stating that. I don't see the point of the amendment.
Right. Okay. Thank you, Councillor Goff. So we have the amendment, which is is just on removing the words of maximum. So all those in favour of the amendment? Against? Oh, sorry. I'll go again. I'll go again. It was a late call there, Councillor Black. So all those in favour of the amendment? Against? Declare that lost. No, sorry, my apologies. One, yes. I was thinking it was 5 off a second. Okay, thank you. Declare that one. Now that becomes part of the motion. So now we go back and debate the overall motion. And so we're now talking about the EOI process, the funding, removed the maximum, obviously, support of $40,000 and inline support. So debate on that, councillors. Councillor Wright.
Thanks, Mr. Mayor. Just a comment of clarity, I think, for the community that the council's not making a decision on whether we're going to pull the pin as such or cancel the Dream Festival. This is going out to an expression of interest to community, and so this is where community have an opportunity to show us how passionate they are with regards to the Dream Festival, and if they want to be a part of the festival itself, get that expression of interest in, hook up with one of the other creative groups, find out who else is interested and form that committee, submit that expression of interest. That's the kind of thing that'll indicate to council whether there's some passion for the Dream Festival to continue into the future, not a decision made here tonight. So, so for information, obviously, contact council. The clock's ticking on that expression of interest period now. So.
Well, not yet, Councillor Wright, because we haven't resolved that part yet. So give them a few minutes yet. Any further discussion or debate? Councillor Black.
Yes, thank you. It is important, I feel, for the community that the Dream Festival continue in some form. What that form is yet to be determined, but it looks like there will be $40,000 there for a community group to run something. And one of the things with the Lantern Festival, you could see how many people it generated into the park and up and down Talbragar Street last year. We've seen, I know, kids who have made lanterns and put it in. They love going along and seeing their lanterns. So if something like that can continue, that brings the community out and gives people a chance to express themselves creatively, then that'd be great. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Black. Further discussion or debate, councillors? Councillor Wells.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. So I'd be really hoping that there are some eager community groups that want to form a consortium or have a think about that. If one group can't do it on their own, hopefully there's a couple or a few that could come together, and hopefully there would also be some thinking to include First Nations organisations so that we've got a real strength around the multicultural strength of this community. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Wells. Further discussion, Councillor Burns.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I just wanted to say that Dream Festival, I think it's been running about 10 years. I remember being involved with the first one, and it was a couple of stalls. It went okay, but I have trouble understanding how they wrap all of these, because I see all of the different events that happen within the Dream Festival still happening, but I don't know if they're going to be coinciding with each other. I think that's all what Dream did, bring them all together. So I just don't believe that we need to keep the Dream Festival going, because all the other activities are going to keep happening anyway. That's why I'm going to vote against it. That's all. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Burns. Further discussion, Councillor Chowdhury.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I hope through that EOI, if that comes through tonight, and a passionate community member will come and join and deliver this great event. Through you, Mr. Mayor, if this motion goes tonight, then when we are expecting that EOI will be go to the community, and is there any time frame?
Thank you, Councillor Chowdhury. I'll go through Mr. Wood to Mr. Arms.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So we've drafted the EOI. It's sitting there in anticipation for this moment. So should it go through, we'll gather the team together tomorrow and fine tune where we're at and make sure the CEO and the rest of the governance team are secure in our approach. So I would be looking to start that ball rolling, if not tomorrow, then early next week, and looking at a 28-day expression of interest time frame, in which time interested members of the community can make contact with the team, and we can have those discussions, read the terms of reference that we've set out about how that money would be managed, for example, the expectations that we would have around the use of that money, so the governance around that. And then an assessment of any applications that we receive. So 28 days, that takes us to around this time next month, and then an assessment process. So I would say certainly by the end of April, by the end of April, we'd be looking to have some sort of idea about where we're standing.
So can I just follow up further on your behalf, the Councillor Chowdhury? So, Mr. Arms, 28 days, we've got a slightly longer gap because of Easter between this meeting and the April meeting. So does that mean you would actually have those EOIs come back to the April meeting, which is about 5 weeks away?
I would certainly give it a red hot go, Mr. Mayor. Depending on timeframes, I think the cutoff for the report would be tight. That would be our intent. Can I say that? Failing that, it would need to be a May committees perhaps, and then from there.
And the reason I ask that, Councillor Chowdhury, is that we'd like to give any organisation as much time as possible. So getting into April, an extra month would actually be better than getting into May, to give the successful organisation more time, an extra month to prepare for Dream. So anyway, thank you. So red hot go is the technical term that we heard from Mr. Arms. Okay, thank you, Councillor Chowdhury. Other discussion or debate, councillors? No, we're being none. Councillor Goff, you have the right of reply to anything that was said in the debate on this particular item.
Just a comment.
No, you can only make a reply to other
my
comments.
Reply to everyone.
That's right.
Is that I'm sure with all the emails that all the councillors got from a very passionate people, the creative arts community, all together they can have a red hot crack go at forming a committee, because it'll be pretty hefty with the amount of emails I got. So I have confidence that we'll get the right people to do it.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Goff. We have the motion before us now, the amended motion. All those in favour? Against? Declare that carried. Thank you, councillors. The next item is the save and accept item CCC 24/13, moved by Councillor Goff. Can I have someone second that, please? Councillor Chowdhury. Councillor Goff, do you wish to speak to that?
No, thank you, Mr Mayor.
Any other discussion or debate, councillors? There being none, I put that. All those in favour? Against? Declare that carried. Next item on the agenda is the report of the Corporate Services Committee meeting, CCL 24/46. The save and accept, sorry, Councillor Chowdhury, you've got an item save and accept there as well, so move and just save that, accept that, please.
Yeah, I have a CCL 24/46 7 accept.
So move CCL 24/7,
Yeah.
save and accept that to the confidential session.
Yes.
Yep. Okay, thank you. So, thank you, I've got that. Now, any other save and accept items from that particular meeting, from the Corporate Services Committee meeting? No? Okay, so I need a seconder for that, sorry. Councillor Mann. So, any discussion or debate on the Corporate Services Committee meeting excluding that one item? No? No discussion or debate. Thank you. All those in favour? Against? Declare that carried. Now, that was a save and accept of a confidential item, Councillor Chowdhury, so I'll move that through to the confidential session rather than dealing with it now. Okay, thank you. Next item is CCL 24/47, report of the Wellington Town Committee. Councillor Ivey.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Could I move an alternative motion to that which is listed? That the alternative motion read, 1, that the report of the Wellington Town Committee meeting held on the 26th of February 2024 be adopted, and 2, the additional point 2, that during the next quarterly budget review, Council give consideration to the reallocation of $5,000 funding currently allocated to the Rhino Renewal Project to the Sunken Garden Project.
Thank you. So that's the motion from that. Thank you, Councillor Ivey. Can I have a seconder for that, please? Thank you, Councillor Mann. Councillor Ivey, just to speak to your motion.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Look, just to explain the addition for that extra clause in the amended motion, Council had allocated $5,000 towards the Rhino Renewal Project, which was replacing the rhinos which had been previously through the Dubbo Regional Council. I think the one in Wellington was stolen or damaged, and so there was money available to replace that. As part of the replacement process, though, it was decided to put out to public consultation whether or not that's what the public wanted. I think we got I think there were 170, I might be wrong there, I think 170 public submissions back, and very much the majority of opinion was that the rhino shouldn't be replaced, but instead that money should be reallocated to help beautify the sunken gardens within Cameron Park. And so the Wellington Town Committee adopted that resolution, and that is this amended motion then is just to formalise that so that Council recognises that that money can be indeed spent to the improvement of the Sunken Garden Project rather than replace the fiberglass rhino. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Ivey. Any other discussion or debate, councillors? There being none, I put that. All those in favour? Against? Declare that carried. Next item is CCL 24/48, report of the Audit Risk and Improvement Committee on the 4th of March. If someone move that, Councillor Wright, move that, please. Sorry, Councillor Chowdhury, move that. Seconded by Councillor Wright. Councillor Chowdhury, you should speak to that.
No, I'm good. Thank you, Mr Mayor.
Okay, thank you. Any discussion or debate? There being none, I put that. All those in favour? Against? Declare that carried. Next item is a report of the Dubbo Regional Livestock Markets Advisory Committee meeting, CCL 24/49. Have someone move that way, please. Thank you, Councillor Goff. Seconded by Councillor Burns. Councillor Goff, do you wish to speak to that?
I wasn't there.
Doesn't matter.
Okay. No comment, Mr Mayor.
Okay, thank you. Any discussion or debate, councillors? No, there being none, I put that. All those in favour? Against? Declare that carried. Next item is CCL 24/50, the Narromine Nawana Waste to Energy Plant Update. Councillor Black, you should move that.
Yes, thank you. I move the following. 1, that the Chief Executive Officer bring a report to the May 2024 Ordinary Council meeting detailing where the proposal is currently up to with the applications and approvals. And 2, That report provides details about the project and its alignment to EPA policy settings and any potential impacts on the Dubbo LGA.
Thank you, Councillor Black. Can I ask one question? You might just need to make one minor change for me, if you so desire. It talks about the proposal in the motion that you've got there, but it doesn't actually say what the proposal is. Obviously, when you read the report, it's obvious, but I just thought for clarity, you might add what the proposal is.
Add that in. In point 1, meeting detailing where the proposal for the Narromine Narwana waste to energy plant is currently up to with applications and approvals.
Thank you, if that makes sense. Thank you. I have a seconder for that. Councillor Wells. Councillor Black, do you wish to speak to that?
Oh yeah, just briefly, thank you. So this is just to get a report. We've all seen the chatter in the media and on the radio, Daily Liberal, Facebook, got a few emails about it. Got an email from the CEO even with a bit of explanation. This is just for a report. Rather than 10 of us all go around and find out our own information from all different sources, if we have one person at council bring that to us, that would be fantastic. And someone who's able to actually look into the veracity of all the different claims that are being made. Are there any potential impacts on the Dubbo local government area? We've seen that there could be. It really is incumbent upon us as councillors to look into that and see if there is or there isn't. We can all just Google while we're sitting on the toilet looking at our phone, but we should really get it from someone who is a bit of an expert in that field. Anyway, I'll leave it at that. It's pretty self-explanatory, just for a report on where this whole thing's up to and how it might impact Dubbo. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Black. Any discussion or debate, councillors? Councillor Wright.
Thanks, Mr. Mayor. Look, Councillor Black, I'm not sure I can support this. Look, we've got our own patch to worry about, for one. Secondly, look, we're all about efficiencies and focusing our own council staff attention on a lot of the things we're addressing in our own patch. I understand this is in an LGA neighbouring us, and just taking a leaf out of a suggestion you gave a few months ago was to jump on the phone, find a phone number, and ring maybe an elected member, which I actually took the liberty of doing, and rang an elected member in the Narromine Council, and he was quite open, and he was very happy for me to share the fact that, and his comments were that there is no DA for any related project. There is no proposal before council. There hasn't been any formal discussion with council and that potential proponent for some time now. Any proposal of this nature would need to undergo a significant and intense process of scrutiny, even before it was even considered for a DA submission. There was apparently an option on the purchase of land from council, but that lapsed back in November 2023, so nothing is occurring there. And at a council meeting last week of Narromine, there was a resolution which, amongst other things, stated that Narromine Council will not sell land to any waste to energy or incineration projects in the future. I think that's pretty clear that there's nothing on the table. There's nothing happening. We're jumping at shadows. I'm happy for members of the community to Google on their toilets or whatever they do on the toilets. That's their business. But in this council, I think we can just look at the facts and reach out and ask relevant members of elected body in that LGA. And that states pretty clear to me that we're jumping at shadows, and we don't need to waste council staff on providing a report for something which really looks like it's going to have no effect on us, and potentially, by the sound of it, not even any members of the Narromine community. Thanks.
Thank you, Councillor Wright. Anything further, councillors, discussion or debate? Councillor Ivey.
Just to add, following on from what Councillor Wright said, then really the motion perhaps is just not correct, because there is no proposal. So the motion presupposes there is a proposal, but by the sound of things, there is no proposal. So I would have thought the motion was, in that sense, incorrect.
Thank you, Councillor Ivey. So by changing the wording, as Councillor Biggs slightly, when I suggested it changes it to the Narromine Narwana Waste to Energy Plant, then to me that satisfies that, because you may well be correct on the proposal. I won't argue the semantics of that, but because it's now been removed, it's talking about the Narromine Narwana Waste to Energy Plant. So yes, there's no proposal, but that's been removed from there now, and it's clearer. So if that satisfies that, Councillor Ivey.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Yes.
Any further discussion or debate, councillors? Councillor Black, if you'd have a right to reply to anything that was said.
Yeah, well, thank you. Councillor Wright mentioned about the Narromine Shire Council, what they passed at their previous meeting. As he knows, I had to have my notice of motion in before that meeting, and it was actually an amendment. So there's no way I would have known about that, what they were going to pass or an amendment they were going to move prior to that meeting actually occurring. It's also interesting that Councillor Wright says that he picked up the phone, and I'd said that people should do that. I remember when I mentioned that, this is to do with the rescission of the rehab centre, that no one believed me. But all of a sudden, I'm expected to believe what comes back from Councillor Wright after speaking to someone from Narromine. So it's a shame that Councillor Wright didn't conduct such extensive research as a single phone call to an individual involved with a project before he pushed his 3D printed toilet disaster.
Just sorry,
on
Councillor
Dubbo.
Black, I'll pull you up there. Happy for clean, open debate, but when you start making inferences that something that Councillor Wright has done is a disaster, then I think that's going over the line. So I'll just ask you to refrain from that sort of language. Thank you.
Yes, I will. But so it's disappointing that I'm expected to just believe everything, but no one believes me. And the actual cost, the real thrifty shopkeeper approach, when we consider some of the stuff that we've had staff do over the time, and it probably wouldn't take all that long compared to 10 councillors all having to run around and do their own research. Maybe right, maybe not, but I'd think that it's probably the best way to go would be to get one person from an expert trained in the field from council to actually do that rather than everyone do their own. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Black. We have the recommendation or the notice of motion before us, councillors, with the change that Councillor Black made. All those in favour? Against? Declare that lost. Okay, thank you, councillors. Next item, CCL 24/51, Wiradjuri Tourism Centre funding update. Councillor Black.
Thank you. My notice of motion says the following. There's 7 points. 1. Let it be noted that the Create New South Wales grant contributing $5 million to the construction of the Wiradjuri Tourism Centre must be spent by June 2026. 2. Let it be noted that the estimate for ongoing operational expense is $400,000 per annum as a starting point, and this figure does not include depreciation, which impacts on Council's financial sustainability. 3. That Council withdraw its application to the Growing Regions Round 1, which requires a 50-50 funding arrangement, meaning a $2.2 million payment by Dubbo Regional Council, which is proposed to be funded via an internal loan. 4. That the Chief Executive Officer work with Aboriginal organisations to establish a First Nations-led operating model for the Wiradjuri Tourism Facility. 5. That it be noted that a First Nations-led application would be able to apply for future rounds of the Growing Regions Fund, which would be based on a 90% Australian Government and 10% other financial contribution. 6. That it be noted that the Create New South Wales grant could be considered as the 10% contribution in the above First Nations-led operating model, negating the need for council capital investment of $2.2 million plus a presently unknown amount in foregone interest from an internal loan, and that the project would focus on spending the Create New South Wales funding first as a priority within project expenditure phasing. And 7. That Council prepares an expression of interest application for round 2 of the Growing Regions program when it opens to fund up to 90% of the Wiradjuri Tourism Centre, utilising the Create New South Wales funds as Council's match funding contribution.
Thank you, Councillor Black. Have someone second that, please. Thank you, Councillor Chowdhury. Councillor Black, do you wish to speak to that?
Yes, I would, thank you. I feel that we made a big mistake when we went with the 50-50 grant funding application previously, and this is looking to correct that and also correct the books, which would be $2.2 million straight up, funded by an internal loan, and then I remember seeing a figure of about $1 million in interest, foregone interest, so $3.2 million. I'd like to point out that staff did recommend that we accept the 90-10 funding application, not the 50-50 that it was amended to. The 90-10 application would have been a $0 cost to ratepayers, where the 50/50 application is a $2.2 million plus the interest. We'd still be able to spend, if we got the round two, just withdraw from this, apply for the round two funding when it becomes available, which is, I understand, going to be pretty soon, pretty much straight after round one is finalised. It would also, everyone that wanted to would be able to have a say. I remember there being a bit of an issue with the 90-10 application for round one, in that the Aboriginal partner that the council had spoken to was just the Lands Council, and some other people may have felt left out about that. But with this motion, the CEO would talk to all the different organisations and work out how they could all be involved in that. No one would be excluded, and we wouldn't just have one group included. So everyone could be happy with that. Now, I don't think that many people would be very happy when they realise what's happened here. And it's like, you could have got the 90-10, but you went to 50-50, and you're going to cost like $3 million. Now, that's before blowouts, and people have been telling me that they're budgeting 28% for cost blowouts on projects. And I know there's ways to save money and stuff like that, but we do have a very good design there, and it'd be a shame to see that reduced and at greater cost to ratepayers. So at the moment, we haven't got any money from the government or the federal government. We haven't got the 50-50 grant. As I said, my understanding is that the round two will come out straight after round one. I can't see the Labor federal government not funding the 90-10 application. This isn't about saying that we don't want to get it built. This is about council being the winner and saying we can save over $3 million to ratepayers here if we have probably about a 6-month delay. And that would also give time for council staff to talk to all the different Aboriginal corporations in town that are interested, and looking at the how they could put together, the governance of the 90-10, the Aboriginal, what's the correct word? Aboriginal organisations in the First Nations-led model to get the 90-10 funding. And remembering, though, that council staff back in, I think it was July last year, were satisfied that they did have an Aboriginal organisation who would be able to deliver and get the funding. That's pretty much where I come from. It's all about what I see as correcting a mistake. I don't see much reputational damage for council. I think people would understand that it probably cop a 6-month delay to save $3 million. I think would be right. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Black. Have any other discussion or debate, councillors? Councillor Wells.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Okay, I can see where my colleague's coming from in terms of cost savings and trying to do something in a different way. I suppose my concerns, why I can't support the motion, is that there's been a huge investment amount of time through the Wiradjuri Aboriginal Tourism Centre. It's been years and years and years. There's been quite a lot of conversation with Aboriginal community members where at times they have been really challenging conversations, and we've been able to sort of, and this is prior to myself even being on council, where we've been able to reduce some of those concerns. So something like this would send a message to, I think, our community that it would make our community, our First Nations or Aboriginal community, whatever language you want to use, lose trust. And that's really hard for to get back once you've lost trust from any community. And in particular, when I talk about Aboriginal communities, I've been in places where we've gone to numerous consultations where you're trying to win back the trust of a particular community group, and that's really, really difficult. And I think this could potentially put us at risk if we go backwards. I understand the concept around looking at saving dollars, and I absolutely understand where you're coming from. However, my concern is we're right at the pointy end of hearing from Create probably within the next 7 days, and to pull the pin now when we've got the opportunity to move forward, turn a sod, get some things happening, I think is the way that we need to go. And I think then we could look at that 90-10 or different splits when we've gotten further down the road, because obviously if we're successful, we've got to do a tender, We need to get an appropriate builder. We've got to turn aside that. All of that takes time, and through that time, there's plenty of time for us to do thorough consultations with Aboriginal community organisations that would be able to come, and they could look at doing consortiums so that you've got some really strong Aboriginal community-led organisations. If I talk about, if you go to Condobolin, I'm not sure if people in this room have been to Condobolin, it's got the Wiradjuri Aboriginal Centre over there. It's amazing. That tiny little community can display such a significant cultural centre that has beautiful artwork in it and some really strong connection to country. We can do that here sooner than we can later. And what my dream is for this Wiradjuri Aboriginal Tourism Centre is that tourists from all over the nation and all over the world come to Dubbo and go, wow, what a fantastic cultural experience I got in Dubbo. And as a traditional custodian, I think we can pull that off. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Wells. And I just, before I go to, sorry, Councillor Wright, I just want to ask a question there, because I know you said something, I was going to ask a question to Mr Wood here, said something, Councillor Wells there, talking about the announcement being imminent, and I don't know when, in terms of the announcement, but I'm not sure if Mr Wood can shed any further light on that. And we're talking about the federal government grant, because obviously Create New South Wales grant is sitting there, but Create New South Wales obviously talked to the federal government. And so just before I go to Councillor Wright, I just want to check on that there, if I can, Mr Wood.
Yes, I will throw to Mr Angus, who's the manager, and he's had some feedback from Create New South Wales. Waiting for the microphone, Mr Angus.
Thank you, Mr Angus.
Yeah, we certainly the grant application was placed in mid-January. We were told it would be a 6 to 8 week period of notification, which is getting very close now. We've heard some other talk from other departments that announcement is very, very, very close. So we are assuming in the next couple of days, a week or so, is certainly the indication that was given.
Thank you. And sorry, just Councillor Wright. And so I just want to check one other thing. If to Mr Wood, or maybe to Mr Wood, if the grant application was successful, in other words, if the federal government comes back and says, congratulations, you've been successful in your application, at that point in time when we know definitely, we still could say no at that point in time if we actually had a yes from the federal government. They're not going to make us take it if we decide after we've got the money that we've thought a different way would be a better way to go. Mr Wood?
Yes, so we should always be, as an organisation, as elected body, willing. That's the culture we need to have if you apply for grants, and it's still an opportunity for a sense check, a stop go. We've done that once in my term here in this role, where there was an application for us to be a part funder of a road intersection at 12 Mile Lane as to assist the renewable energy development. You recall La Nina, you may have that dim memory of roads blowing up from underneath from the saturation, and I've told Transport and indeed Squadron that we can't contribute our proportion of the grant because our road budget, which is where that was being funded from, was under such pressure for maintenance, let alone a new one as part of a grant program. So that's an example of considering our circumstances at that time of the announcement of the grant, and it wasn't suitable. So certainly we would bring something back as a stop go, and council could consider that should we be successful.
Sorry, Councillor Wright. On to you now, Councillor Wright.
Thanks, Mr Mayor. Look, this is a good motion that Councillor Black has brought up here, and well done on his conscientious approach to the finances of council. So in that respect, following up some of those grant questions, I suppose my first question would be with respect to that current grant. We don't know for sure whether that's even been approved yet, so there certainly wouldn't be any guarantee that we'd be approved even if we decided to apply for a 90/10. But my question would be, if this application was declined, does council then have an opportunity to step straight in and look for maybe a round 2 of the Growing Regions program when it opened? There's nothing restricting us from doing that if the first one was declined.
No, and I can give an example back from the old Dubbo City Council days, which did involve Mr Wood in his former role as a director, and that was a grant involving the Barden Park Athletics Facility. Our first round application wasn't successful. Mr Wood and myself actually met with the federal government, asked why it wasn't successful, what could we refine, what could we change, how could we make it better. We got feedback and then submitted a second application when the second round for that particular program was announced, and then we were successful in the second round. So I'm not aware, and I'm happy to throw to Mr. Wood in a moment, I'm not aware of any process where you miss out on a grant, therefore you can never apply for a grant again. You miss out on a grant, round two opened, all bets are off. You can basically put those grants in again if you so desire, or if you change where you're going, or get some feedback about how it might be successful. Mr. Wood, happy if you want to add anything to that.
I'll just say it's a pretty standard experience. The grants of scale are normally always oversubscribed. So it's your chance to improve a grant if you're unsuccessful rather than a no, unless you get really frank and fearless advice from a public servant to say, don't bother trying again. I've yet to have that. But typically it's that chance to polish up. So yes, if we are unsuccessful with this particular grant application, that will be a time to reboot our thinking, and that is a normal practice we do. And that would include, rethinking the mix of how we go for the financing of the grant, and will we be likely more successful with an Aboriginal organisational led grant? You'd put that in the mix certainly for another application.
Thank you, Mr. Wood. Councillor Wright, further?
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just a couple more questions, actually. I know Councillor Black indicated that round two would start when round one ceased, but from experience, sometimes there can be some delays in that. I'm just wondering, I guess it's going to be hard to put a figure on this, but historically, if round one closes, round two starts, what sort of gap would we normally expect? Are they seasonal type grants? Just trying to understand maybe if council did make a decision on this tonight, what sort of further delays could there potentially be with the project? Obviously, those types of delays could add further to potential construction costs if it was delayed significantly by a long time, considering this conversation was started nearly 6 years ago.
Yeah, certainly, and I'll give my experience and hand over to Mr. Wood, but you don't know, and I find grants that I've seen typically when the first round closes, it's unusual that the second round would open immediately. There's usually some delay in time, and then it'll go through an application process again, there'll be a closing of that, then as we've seen with this particular process where it might be another process to wait for those processes or those applications to be judged. So we don't actually know. There's been no announcement about round two. We can assume there's a round two, but no announcement about any dates involving a round two. Happy for you to add anything further, Mr. Wood?
Yeah, this particular grant program slipped already in terms of announcing and closing dates and what have you. We're very successful at EOI, but it drifted already. There's another program that they've got out at the moment, Regional Precincts and Partnerships grant, run by the same department, that's due for hoovering up assessments in the next couple of weeks. So we don't know. Mr. Angus has said that he suspected that it might be a similar time frame, open it up in December and roll around for closure for submission time in January 2025. What we should be aware of is it's a relatively new government, a new program. They will take the time to refine the grant guidelines to learn the lessons of the first round. That is always what any government of any persuasion does. So it won't be. Now, what that actually means in terms of timelines is an unknown. So probably the best answer I can get to in terms of detail.
So I think that was a two unknowns. Was the two answers you got, Mr. Councillor Wright. Further, Councillor Wright?
Yeah, thanks for that valuable information, Mr. CEO. The other question I had were around losing my thing. Councillor Black made a comment there with respect to his level of confidence around, a council being successful in a round two. The appetite seemingly from this federal government, to me, indicates that there's a strong support for First Nations culture. So probably have that same level of confidence, to a point of Councillor Black. The question I had was around the Create New South Wales grant. We have $5 million on the table here, which represents our part of our 50-50 contribution, or even a portion of our 90-10 contribution. My understanding is that money needs to be spent by the end of 2026. If the project isn't complete by, I believe, end of 2025 under the Growing Regions program, potentially what penalties are in place if we have our Create New South Wales money? Does the project need to be finished to qualify to keep that, or do we just have to spend that first to tick the box to say that we can keep our Create New South Wales funding? I guess, about both of those, I suppose, with regards to deadlines and keeping that money.
Thank you, Councillor Wright. Mr. Wood.
Mr. Angus,
to Mr. Angus.
Certainly, with any grant application, there's always a deadline to deliver, and there's always a risk if you don't meet that deadline that those funds need to be returned to the funding agency. So it is certainly always a negotiation as part of that, and I'm sure everyone in the room has been involved in projects that didn't meet the original funding deadline, and there has always been a negotiation in that process. So the risk is certainly evident. To answer your question about the Create money, we've been told the deadline is June 2026, and the current GRP that they've told us for the application is December 2025. So if we do receive the funding announcement this month, we have until December 2025 to meet the GRP funding, and we've still got another 6 months for the Create funding, but it's all wrapped up together. That project will be finished all at once. So by applying for the GRP, we're still able to meet the Create June 2026 deadline.
Thank you. And sorry, just before you go further, Councillor Wright, do we have a approximation, Mr. Angus, on the time for construction of this particular facility? If we started construction, well, we wouldn't start construction, if we went out to tender today, what would be your approximation, best educated guess as to when that would be finished?
Luckily, I don't have to make an educated guess. We actually have our project team working on that, and they've got a timeline that if we receive the funding announcement this month, they will be able to finish construction around November 2025. So we've got about a 1 month period there, but it has been quite well mapped out on a timeline with contingencies, etc. on it. So the project team are confident they can deliver it by December 2025 at the very latest.
And so that would be 6 months up our sleeve for the Create New South Wales money. But if it was a year's time, then obviously the Create New South Wales money would be at risk because that would be then not able to be met in that 6 month time frame.
Correct.
Councillor Wright.
Thanks, Mr. Mayor. That's probably sort of where I was leading with respect to that Create New South Wales money and putting that in jeopardy. At this point, I'm not sure if I can support Councillor Black, not because I don't agree with. Certainly, this council is all about for financial sustainability and being very careful about spending the money of community frivolously. Not that this is frivolous. But the reason why I think that I can't support it is I just want to work with a little bit more certainty. Pending this announcement in the next couple of days, we're not even guaranteed that our application for the 50-50 funding has been approved at this point in time. And there's every chance it could go either way. We may have notification within the next week or two that that funding wasn't approved, and subsequently we may not have even needed to have made this decision on whether to pull the funding and go for 90-10. The decision may already be made for us. I'm just wondering if there's a bit of support to maybe even, not sure if we can make an amendment here or not, but whether this motion was defeated, whether maybe a question to you, Mr. Mayor, if there's, through you, Mr. Mayor, if it was defeated, and upon an announcement of this current grant that's in, whether there will be an opportunity for council to call an extraordinary meeting to make this decision, knowing we have some firm things to work with rather than sort of pulling the pin on something which is so close, or whether we need to wait to another council meeting for us to be able to do that.
Just to answer the question there, Councillor Wright, then at any time, two councillors can sign and ask for an extraordinary meeting on a specific topic. But I would suggest that if an announcement was pending and we would be notified that before the public was notified, then at the very minimum, I'm sure Mr. Wood could send an email to councillors to say, do they want to hold an extraordinary meeting? Do we want to make a decision now because it's about to be announced? So that could happen. Whether that could happen in the time frame, given the delay you need from an announcement of an extraordinary, a request for an extraordinary meeting to the time frame that needs to happen before that's held, which is 3 days minimum, then whether that would be before the announcement. But again, if the CEO was aware that this might be a possibility, in other words, from the discussion now, then if the call came from the federal government, we could say, fantastic, don't announce it yet. We've just got to have a discussion with our councillors. So that would certainly be an option. Further?
I'll sit tight. I might have another question, but thank you for now.
Thank you, Councillor Wright. Further discussion or debate, councillors? Councillor Ivey.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Look, it seems to me that with the announcement being so imminent, as we've said, that it would be a mistake to to make any change to our position now by adopting Councillor Black's motion. If indeed the decision comes out and we don't get it, it's refused, then Councillor Black's motion becomes the way forward. You know, well, I think we would then look at alternative funding sources, and we would put in an application under round 2, and I think that's a bit of a no-brainer. If the money comes in, then it comes back to what Councillor Black said. We've got the money, we've got the grant, we've got to commit council funds, or we can discard that and go for the chance that perhaps down the track we will get the same project under better terms and conditions. And I just think that's too big a risk to take. I think if we've got the money, then let's get it and run with it, rather than sort of forego that and go for a chance that in 12 months' time or 6 months' time we might get a better financing arrangement. I just think the old bird in the hand is worth so much more than one in the bush. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Ivey. Further discussion or debate, councillors? Councillor Wright, you have further questions?
Yeah, just seeking a bit of clarity again, a question about that Create New South Wales money. There was some commentary there a little earlier, made a comment with respect to that if council did adopt the motion from Councillor Black and the project potentially was delayed as a result of waiting for a round 2 growing regions program to come through. If we were approved for a 90-10 type split, obviously we would have an extended deadline to complete that project. Again, would we fulfil the Create New South Wales grant money if it was spent first on the project prior to, say, June 2026? I'm just, I guess where I'm coming from there is, by delaying it, are we putting that Create New South Wales money in jeopardy?
Thank you, Councillor Wright. Through to Mr Wood.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. The risk is there, yes. You could manage that risk. So it will depend on when round 2 opens and round 2 decisions get announced. So that's the critical thing we don't know. If it was timely enough, then you would look to spend your Create New South Wales money and acquit that first, given, well, one would hope that round 2 has a longer timeline than the Create money. So you would manage your cash flow as in use the Create money first. But the criticality is how long they delay it, because I think I'm comfortable in saying we've had a good collaboration with departments about delaying things because they see the benefit of this project. I don't think we would get much allowance given the state government's position on its finances if we are unable to spend it by the deadline. So it's that critical, how soon does it open, how soon are they assigning, as to whether we can even spend the Create first in a program way, what that looks like.
Thank you, Mr Wood. Further, Councillor Wright?
No, thanks, Mr Mayor.
Thank you. Any other questions, comments? You've got question, Councillor Ivey?
Yes, a question, Mr Mayor. Just a clarification. If, under what Mr Wood was just saying, it would be another organisation applying for the money. It's, the whole basis is that a First Nations or an Indigenous organisation would make the running for the application. The application would go in under their name. So can we then come in and say, well, this is now your project, but we're going to contribute the money that we got in our name? I mean, if I were a funding body, I'd say, hang on, what's happening here?
And you're saying in particular there, Councillor Ivey, that Create New South Wales has granted money to WA Regional Council, and then organisation ABC puts a grant application in that we take money from Create New South Wales and hand over to them to add to the 10%. I can see your dilemma.
To do that.
Okay, question to Mr Wood.
No, I think the grant application, even though it would be submitted by a First Nations Aboriginal entity to apply, we would be a partner of the application. We'd have a signed up partnership. So this is our contribution. That's not unusual to have others contribute. Indeed, government, federal government, state government, they always prefer to have multiple people putting funding into, sometimes in kind, into a particular project. So I don't see that against the grain for government that way. And yes, we'd have to formalise it, make sure I had some rigour around the governance. That would be my only caveat, but it's very doable in that sense.
Thank you. So I've got a question now. after all that. The question is really in terms of the increasing costs that we're seeing around buildings and I think it's the CoreLogic Cordell construction cost index, as I use typically, 11.9% they said is the annual construction cost increase. So if you looked at that, the $15 million, let's say the application went for $15 million on the 90-10, applying that to a year delay, you end up with a $16.8 million project. The 90% of $15 million is $13.5 million. So now the gap becomes not 10%, but it's now $3.3 million, which is more than the $2.2 million that we're being asked to put in now. So if we put the application in a year's time, do we have to go out based on all of that and recost the entire project, because it's definitely going to be dearer than $15 million? And is that overcomplicating the entire process?
Question or the answer I'm about to give? I'm being facetious. Being facetious. So what you articulate is the risk of delaying building projects. They are typically building costs, wherever they are, tends to go up faster. It's got its own inflation index compared to the normal consumer price index. So that is a risk of any delay in a project. And it will still be a risk. You know, you do your best planning, your best quantity surveying. What the real test of a price is going to market. So we still may face that challenge. So to your answer, if you delay it longer, yes, there will be a potential significant increase in costs. What that looks like, I don't know. It'll be something we have to work through as a project plan with quantity surveying and what have you. And that may need changing of designs and what have you. So it'd be a nuanced conversation depending on the extent of the delay.
And I apologise for my long question, but the main part of that was, would we have the opportunity to go back and rather than apply for 90% of $15 million, the new costing, which again, by my approximation, $16.8 million, but you need to do some QS on that. An application then would be 90% of the $16.8 million rather than the 90% of the $15 million.
Yes, I think the big thing is you've got we're using you would use your Create New South Wales as the 10%. So you're still trying to need to get your budget to fit that. Otherwise, we potentially will be looking for another source, including council, to top up the 10%. So that is a risk of a delay.
It sounds like many risks of a delay, doesn't it? Any further debate? Councillor Burns.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I've got a couple of questions. First one is, I want to thank Councillor Black for putting this notice up, because it's about time it was brought up again. I didn't know what was happening with that, with the Wiradjuri Centre, because there was no talk about it over the last 6 or 8 months, but I'm glad there is now. I wanted to know if this didn't get voted or carried, is there another option? And the other question was, I know the building that the designers designed was initially to take in, there was a tall part of the building to take in the trees, and now the trees aren't coming in there. Is that going to change, and does that affect the cost of the building at all? That's all. Thank you.
So, sorry, Councillor Burns, there were two questions. The first one, is this the last option?
Yeah, if this doesn't get through, what's the other option? And then the other one was about the building. So, like, if this is voted down, or whatever you call it, is there another option, or what's the next option to the Wiradjuri Technical Centre's?
So I'll answer the first part first. If this motion was defeated,
yep,
then the application that's in, unless councillors come up with another resolution, the application that sits with the federal government at the moment would continue on. Nothing would change there. As per Mr. Angus, hopefully within the next week, it's imminent at some stage in the very near future, they'll make an announcement that we're successful or not successful for the application that was put in there. So that would be where we'd go. So to continue on as if nothing had changed, because nothing has changed because of no resolution. So, and then as we talked about
it's
before,
almost like this is a week early or 2 weeks early.
You may have that opinion indeed, yes. Yeah. So that's the first part. And then as we talked about before, if, for example, we are successful, then we could have an extraordinary meeting to decide whether we now want to go ahead now that we know, definitely. If we're not successful, that's fine. We'll go and look at what other options there might be. So that was the first question. The second question, Mr. Wood, over
Mr. Angus.
to Mr. Angus. Thank you.
Thank you.
Certainly in relation to the artefacts, the sacred trees returning to Dubbo, that through the consultation over the last several years, we did. Community made the determination that they didn't want those artefacts included as part of the design of this facility and to put on display. Luckily, it was very early in the process that we work with community and they've made that decision. So that didn't impact the current design. It was taken out very early on and we weren't considering nor for the vast majority of the design process, considering those particular artefacts to be held on site at all, let alone put on display. So it hasn't impacted the design nor the costings at the moment.
Thank you, Mr. Angus. Does
Thank
that
you.
answer that,
Yes,
Councillor
that
Burns?
answers my question. Thank you.
Thank you. And so any further discussion or debate, councillors? And I think from my perspective, certainly it's been talked about a lot, but the delay certainly seems to me that it can add a lot of expense. And this project is one that's been sitting there for 6 years at least. And I think this would be not just a fantastic Aboriginal tourism product, but a fantastic tourism product, full stop, for Dubbo and the region. And from my perspective on council, if we get projects that are worth $15 million and we have to contribute $2 million, then that seems like a very fair and reasonable outcome for something that I think would be a jewel in our crown of tourism in Dubbo, which I think would be absolutely fantastic. But I also think I agree with Councillor Burns. It seems like this is all a bit too early. Let's wait until we get an actual answer from the federal government on that. There being no further discussion or debate, Councillor Black, right of reply.
Yes, thank you. Everyone obviously agrees that it would be a jewel in the crown. Everyone wants to see it built, but it's just not fair to ratepayers that they paid a $3.2 million, including the interest, when we could have got out of it for $0. As for losing trust from the Aboriginal community, I've spoken to some senior Aboriginal people. They said go for your life. So I was confident in bringing this, that won't be a problem. The DA hasn't been done yet, but see, we've got that $5 million from Create New South Wales, which we've still got nearly 2.5 years to spend. And if building costs went up, then it could go up to $50 million. We've still got that $5 million there as the 10%. Probably won't go to that. But I've got some other scrawled notes here. Spend the Create New South Wales money first. We've talked about that already. So we can save $300 on not getting a staff report, but we can't save $3 million on a project where I believe we made a mistake and we should have gone with the 90-10, remembering that the staff were happy with the 90-10 to go ahead with that, and it was us that changed it to the 50-50, and we wouldn't be having this discussion today if we had have gone with the staff recommendation with the 90-10. But as for a few councillors have mentioned that, look, once you get a letter saying you've got the however much it is from the state, federal government, to turn around and then say, no, we don't want that, we're going to wait for round two because we've made a big mistake the first time, I just can't see that happening whatsoever. So that's why I brought it now, because once you get the letter saying, yeah, you've got this money, which I'm very confident we will, because we had to put in an expression of interest first before they got invited to put the application in. So take that what you will, but you'd be 99.999% certain to get that money. As for then turning around and saying, well, no, we're going to do what we probably should have done the first time and go to 90-10 to save a stack of money in a fiscally responsible way, but we'll still get to where we'll get to at the end. I just couldn't let that go by, unfortunately. So that's where I am after all of that. But yes, everyone wants to see the Wiradjuri Tourism Centre built. That's a given. No one's Robinson Crusoe there, but it's just how we fund it and can we correct the mistake that we've made, I believe, going to 50-50, not the 90-10. Thank you.
Thank you, councillors. We have the resolution, the notice of motion, in front of us. All those in favour? Against? Declare that lost. Thank you, councillors. Next item is CCL 24/52, proposed bus zone, Smith Street, Wellington. If someone move that way, please. Thank you, Councillor Ivey. Seconded by Councillor Goffs. Councillor Ivey, you should speak to that.
Yes, thanks, Mr. Mayor. Just to support it, obviously. I think
just
I'm
sorry,
right in saying that there's
just
no
note-
bus stop between.
Sorry, Councillor Ivey, I'll just, so Councillor Burns just left the meeting briefly. Just a note. Okay, Councillor Ivey, sorry.
I think I'm right in saying that there's no bus stop between the railway station and the Bridge Motel, which encompasses the whole CBD area. And when you stand back and look at that, that's a mistake. This goes a fair way towards correcting that. So hence the support for it. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Ivey. Any other discussion or debate, councillors? No, there being none, I put that. All those in favour? Against? Declare that carried, and just note for the records there that Councillor Burns wasn't in the room for that. Next item, CCL 24/53, proposed keep clear zone, police station, Brisbane Street, Dubbo. Have someone move that, please? Thank you, Councillor Chowdhury. Seconded by Councillor Wright. Thank you, Councillor Chowdhury. Do you wish to speak to that?
Just this is clearly clear report. Just a keep clear zone for the police to attend like an emergency situation. So report is showing all this information.
Thank you, Councillor Chowdhury. Any other discussion or debate, councillors? Being none, I put that. All those in favour? Against? Declare that carried. Next item, CCL 24/54, proposed bus zone relocation. Have someone move that way? Councillor Black, seconded by Councillor Wells. Councillor Black, do you wish to speak to that?
No, thanks.
Thank you. Any other discussion or debate, councillors? Councillor Wells.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I was just really interested in the location of where they're changing it to. One of my questions was why? Why are they relocating it? I think I know the answer, but if somebody could respond so the community understands why it's changed, please.
Certainly. Thank you, Councillor Wells. Through you, Mr. Wood, to Mr. Ryan.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. At the current location, there's a large tree there, and the pruning back of that tree is not feasible in terms of the structure of the tree. So the bus isn't able to come in and do those close, get close to the curb for the drop off and pick up. So this has been agreed to move it further along where we don't have those interruptions. So that's the only reason for it.
Thank you, Mr. Ryan. Councillor Wells, that answer that question?
Yes, it did. Thank you. And I would agree and thankful that we've made a bus stop move so that we can save the tree. I really like that. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Wells. Further discussion or debate, councillors? Councillor Black, it wasn't really a comment, it was more a question from Councillor Wells, so you don't need to be able to reply. Councillors, all those in favour? Against? Declare that carried. And just for the record, sorry, Councillor Burns is back in the room. Next item, CCL 24/55, proposed part-time taxi zone reinstalment in Talbragar Street. Have someone move that, please? Thank you, Councillor Chowdhury. Seconded by Councillor Wright. Councillor Chowdhury, do you wish to speak to that?
Oh, thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Discussion or debate, councillors? Councillor Wright.
Thanks, Mr. Mayor. I'll be sure to test that taxi hearing out at some stage in the future. Thanks.
Thank you, Councillor Wright. I can see why you hesitated. Any further discussion or debate, councillors? There being none, I put that. All those in favour? Against? Declare that carried. Next item, 2024 Wellington Boot Traffic Management for Bushrangers Creek Road, Wellington. Have someone move that way, please. Thank you, Councillor Goff. Seconded by Councillor Ivey. Councillor Goff, you wish to speak to that?
No, thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. Any other discussion or debate, councillors? Being none, I put that. All those in favour? Against? Declare that carried. Next item, CCL 24/57, proposed on-street parking management, North Street, Dubbo. Have someone move that, please. Thank you, Councillor Mann. Seconded by Councillor Wells. Councillor Mann, do you wish to speak to that?
No, thank you.
Any further discussion or debate, councillors? There being none, I put that. All those in favour? Against? Declare that carried. Next item, CCL 24/58, draft Forest Bend Solar Farm Planning Agreement. Results of public exhibition. Can I have someone move that way, please? Thank you, Councillor Ivey. Seconded by Councillor Goff. Councillor Ivey, do you wish to speak to that?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. Look, obviously it's another development in the renewables front, which is very much the flavour of this region. It will produce some benefits. I might just make a comment, though, in that I understand this proposal's been on the cards for a fair while now, but the part of the planning agreement says that the proponent will contribute $1 million to a community fund, 5 years of $200,000 per year for community housing, which is obviously to be recommended and to be really appreciated. But I just look at it, and as I understand that that $1 million represents about 0.54% of the capital investment value of the project. It's a relatively small project at $185 million. That rolls off the tongue pretty easily now, whereas with these projects, $185 million is only a small project. I just realise, though, that 0.54% is a fair bit less than what the council is now looking for any new development, renewable developments, where we are asking for 1.5%. And I think, sure, we can't go back now and ask for 1.5% from this project, but I think it should be just recorded that indeed the contribution is less than what we perhaps would be looking forward to in the future. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Ivan. Just a couple of points there too. You're quite correct in terms of the capital investment value. 1.5% is obviously a framework. And I'm not sure we'd be successful on that with solar because they're tough, obviously, to deal with. But it's certainly, this was started well before our framework, so it gives you an indication of the success of that framework with other projects. But on the good side of all the solar projects we see in our LGA, I'm not aware of any of the other projects having any payment in a planning agreement. So this, and I'm happy to have the staff correct me on this, but this is our first planning agreement for a solar farm. So that's good news. So again, not at a high enough level, but we're making steps in the right direction at least. And again, we have that target of 1.5%. So yeah, that's good. Thank you, Councillor Ivey. Any other discussion or debate, councillors? Councillor Black.
Thank you. Just going on from that point, it shows why it's so ridiculous that it's legislated that wind farms have to provide a community benefit, but solar farms don't. The government just really needs to legislate that and save councils the hassle and return some funds back to the community. But I do thank this Forest Glen solar farm for paying some money that they probably didn't have to. Thank you.
Yeah, and just a minor point there, Councillor Black. We do have success with wind farms, but they're still not legislated either. So neither wind or solar are legislated. What is interesting is that wind does have the process where they do tend to pay money. Solar doesn't tend to do that. So it's frustrating, but I agree with you entirely that it would be nice to see the government legislate both solar and wind to actually pay and batteries for that matter. It'd be much nicer. Thank you, Councillor Black. Discussion, Councillor Wright.
Thanks, Mr. Mayor. Just a couple of questions, maybe, if you like. I noticed on here that a condition of the this planning agreement is that the money would, or $200,000 a year over 5 years, would be contributed towards social housing development schemes, which aim to provide an innovative assistance solution to develop community housing into WA Regional LGA. Maybe through you, Mr. Mayor, can we give a bit of an example as to how that might work? $200,000 towards a large social housing development probably isn't a lot, but so how would they fund the rest? Maybe some clarity on that.
Thank you, Councillor Wright. Through you, Mr. CEO, to Mr. Wallace.
Yeah, thank you for the question, and through you, Mr. Mayor. So council would, upon that planning agreement being enacted when construction commences, council would seek expressions of interest from community housing providers. At that point, they would address a set of very detailed criteria to apply for that year's allowance of $200,000. And effectively what they'd be looking to do is to utilise that $200,000 to enable them to potentially either run a loan to develop community housing or to stack different grants from different areas to make such a project viable. And that's how we see that working after discussing the proposal and the structure with community housing providers.
Thank you, Mr. Wallace. Councillor Wright.
And it was just following on from that as well, and it was about that if the funds weren't taken up, that the money would automatically roll over to a community benefit fund. $200,000 a year is a substantial community benefit fund in my eyes. How does that compare to, if we roll right back to, say, some of the other early community benefit funds, dollar-wise, that we're still sort of seeing roll out now with some of those other projects in the Wellington area?
Well, just an example, Badangra is in the mid-70s. Probably no papers here because we're doing some there, but so $75,000, $76,000 for Badangra, so that gives you some idea. But I would suggest that community benefit funds going forward will be much more lucrative, if that's the right word, than the Badenga one. The Badenga one was done a long time ago and would be probably even lower than the figure that Councillor Ivey said before as a calculation there. Councillor Ivey, you wish to answer that question?
Yeah, just a clarification. You mentioned Badenga is 73,000 this year. That's $73,000 indexed to inflation for the next 20 years, which is a considerable amount of money, more than $1 million.
Yeah, good point too. Yeah, thank you. Thank you, Councillor Wright. Any further questions?
No, thank you.
Thank you. Any further discussion or debate, councillors? Councillor Ivey, you wish to have a right of reply? Okay. Thank you. All those in favour? Against? Declare that carried. The next item is CCL 24/59, draft Bungle Gumby Road Development Control Plan. Have someone move that, please? Thank you, Councillor Wright. Second by Councillor Burns. Councillor Wright, do you wish to speak to that? No further, any further discussion or debate? Councillor Ivey.
Just some comments. I will support the motion, but I just wonder, in looking at some of the ground that the council has given up in relation to the developers' requirements, whether we haven't stumbled at the first hurdle of trying to formulate or put in place a state-of-the-art subdivision. We had earlier workshops, councillors had workshops with this whole Northwest Precinct development, and it looked fantastic. Wide streets, plenty of green areas, corridors down to the river, tree cover, probably, I don't know what the tree cover would be, but I guessed it was sort of approaching 20 or 30%. This revised planning agreement has jeopardised some of those aspirations. I think, you know, we've reduced the width of the street. We have not incorporated any green space area. We haven't. For blocks of greater than 900 square metres, we've given away the requirement for a 25 metre minimum frontage. We've increased the number of blocks from 60 to 80. It just seems to me that we've now got a subdivision that's really a run-of-the-mill ordinary subdivision, whereas I understood the Northwest Precinct was really going to be something special, something that this regional council could be proud of. So I just, perhaps through you, Mr Mayor, just perhaps a response from staff as to those observations that I've made.
Thank you, Councillor Ivey. Through you, Mr Wood, to Mr Wallace.
Yeah, thank you for the comments and a reasonable comment, I think, and question. But essentially, this development, this DCP was in train before the master planning process had been completed for the Northwest. Mars were invited to be part of that master planning process. They chose not to be included in that, so the master planning occurred without them. The ground we've given, the ground we have retained in terms of sticking to our guns is the type of impacts that then can't impact and transfer on to the Northwest wider precinct. The ground we've given acknowledges the early stage at which this development was in when that master planning process was occurring. So it's not ideal. It is not best practice. It is of a standard, however, that is approvable. But what you're seeing in the Greater Northwest is a very much higher standard of development. I think that hopefully should be reflected in the market in time to come, where people want to be. But this proposal, this DCP, is a acceptable model. It's just that they've chosen to operate outside of that Greater Northwest master planning.
Thank you, Mr Wallace. Does that satisfy that, Councillor Ivey?
Thank you. Yes.
Any further discussion or debate, councillors? Councillor Wright, you'd like to say something?
Thanks, Mr Mayor. I'll take up your offer. A couple of points, actually, and just off the back of Councillor Ivey's comment there. Look, I know we've corrected some of those issues that arose in the Mars report in our particular business papers here. One of them that probably gets me a little bit is that we've corrected a road safety issue on the intersection of Bungle Gumby Road, but we've lost some amenity, in my opinion, by by an alternate design which incorporated 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 battle axe blocks, which obviously isn't a preferred method of development, but certainly we've given ground on that on the basis of roads. So we've lost a bit of amenity there. And another comment, which look, I'm sure council have taken on board. There's certainly some comments in that report that is there from Mars with respect to some concerns around timing and council's action of some of those requests. And I hope that going forward they've been addressed. But just a couple of comments from me. Thanks.
Thank you, Councillor Wright. Any further discussion or debate, councillors? Councillor Wright, you've right of replied to anything that Councillor Ivey said. You probably don't need that after your last comments. Okay, thank you, councillors. All those in favour? Against? Declare that carried. Next item is CCL 24/60 DA D23/260. Could I have someone move that, please? Thank you, Councillor Wright. Seconded by Councillor Burns. Councillor Wright, do you wish to speak to that?
Thanks, Mr. Mayor. Oh, look, fantastic to see a high level of confidence again in a developer willing to spend money in our CBD. There's obviously a lot happening in our LGA, so it's great that there's people prepared to put their money on the table and contribute towards residential housing, and that especially in the CBD. There's a question I had, or a couple of questions I had with this one too, in fact. First one was with respect to the significant car parking contribution. It's close to $900,000, which seems like a significant amount on a development worth worth $8 million. It's more than 10% of the total development cost. That's one question. So regarding the contributions, and the second one, which was actually from a concerned nearby landowner who just and following from his question, maybe a question through you, Mr. Mayor, regarding overshadowing of that particular property itself, or the subject property we're talking about, the development application here, and what sort of overshadowing there'd be on neighbouring properties, especially to the south of this development.
Thank you, Councillor Wright. I'll go Mr. Wood to Mr. Quigley.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. And the question there, the car parking contribution. Yeah, council's policy permits where developments don't meet the parking contribution to pay a per space rate on the contributions, and it's roughly 30,000 a space. In this case, they have 30 spaces deficient, so it is a large amount of money. This was done at the suggestion of the developer to make sure they were able to get this application out and that it could operate independently of anything else. Now, the developer does own the property to the north, and into the future there may be some alternate parking solutions that may resolve some of that funding and parking issue. Now, with regard to the overshadowing, we have a lot of east-west allotments along Macquarie Street, which make it difficult to develop just one, the minimum width of their size. This one's only 13 metres wide. Difficult to develop, and therefore you have shading problems as well. However, the matter you're talking to was approved about 6.5, 7 years ago, and from my analysis of the diagrams, at the worst midwinter at 12 noon you would get a little bit of shadowing onto the lowest balconies of those units. So all in all, that's pretty good. Everything above that would be pretty much clear, and that's in the worst scenario, worst day of the year. But having said that, look, the development still complies with council's DCP, so these areas of transition are never easy. It can be very difficult trying to get higher densities and higher stories out of these properties. So, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Quigley. Hopefully that answers the question, Councillor Wright. Anything further?
No, thanks, Mr. Mayor.
Any other discussion or debate, councillors? Councillor Ivey.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just a question, or a comment and a question. The capital contribution in lieu of us parking on site of 850 odd thousand, if that comes through, is there an opportunity for that money to be used in a discretionary way by council to really help some of the parking in the CBD? I'm thinking this development. We've also got the proposed state government development in Carrington Avenue and through there, and that will require significant increased parking as well. Is there an opportunity for council to combine or to use these funds in combination?
Thank you, Councillor Ivey. Through Mr Wood to Mr Wallace.
Through you, Mr. Chair, yes is the short answer, and the longer answer is that in the event that we actually do recoup this level of funding, that does go into a pot that is used specifically for the provision of funding in that CBD area. It is a pot that can be added to by other developments, so that's certainly something that if we are anticipating a further application in the CBD that's quite substantial. We're expecting to have car parking, not enough, insufficient car parking. So we potentially may end up in a position where we do get contributions from that as well, and that could go substantially towards the provision of multi-storey car parking. Noting that multi-storey car parking is incredibly expensive as well. The figures in this report that might make a project quite difficult are necessary, however, to really put towards a multi-storey car park and make it viable as well. So it's a bit of a double prong. In the event that the figures we're talking about in this report actually transpire, is yet to be seen, however.
Thank you, Mr Wallace. Does that answer that, Councillor Ivey?
Thank you. Yes.
Any further discussion or debate, councillors? Councillor Black.
Thank you. Just a question. The nearly $30,000 per car parking space fee, if you're short, is that legislated or set by council?
Set by... Oh, okay. So, Mr Wood to Mr Wallace.
Sorry, Mr. Mayor, I think I'll echo what you were about to say, which is that is set by council. That is a council policy.
Thank you, Councillor Burns. Just leaving the meeting. All right. Okay. Thank you. Councillor Black, further?
Thank you. Since it's set by us, maybe we might need to look at the level that we set that at, because put it up to something that's more meaningful, possibly, to be determined. But we'll never pay for a multi-storey car park if people can just pay 30 grand per spot, given the costs and the cost of the one up at the hospital. We don't run a whole stack of poker machines like the RSL, so we can't afford a 3 or 4 level multi-storey car park, but we may be able to put up the rate per spot to something a bit more meaningful to make some really good contributions to that fund. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Black. Further questions or debate, councillors? Councillor Wright, you do have a right of reply if you wish to use it.
No, thanks, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, councillors. All those in favour? Against? Declare it carried. Next item, CCL 24/61, Community Services Fund, Round 2. Can someone move that, please? Thank you, Councillor Chowdhury. Seconded by Councillor Goff. Councillor Chowdhury. Oh, sorry. That's where your hand was going up, but for the wrong thing. Sorry, my apologies. I'll just get it seconded by someone else besides Councillor Goff. Seconded by Councillor Mann. Councillor Goff.
I'm declaring a pecuniary significant interest as I'm on the board of the Wellington Family and Domestic Violence Collective, and I'll leave the room.
Thank you, Councillor Goff. Okay, thank you. Been moved by Councillor Chowdhury, seconded by Councillor Mann. Councillor Chowdhury, do you wish to speak to that?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just briefly, it's fantastic to see a lot of community groups, few community groups, but they've been eligible and get the fund. But also the other side is a bit sad. Few community groups, they have a few good items, but ineligible due to the A-Quotal they haven't done. So I really urge the community groups to take it serious, submit your requotal. And through you, Mr. Mayor, I have a question to you, to the staff. Is there any, I know there was a few reminder council giving to those community group, but is there any in-person contact if those community group need some help for complete the acquittal? Thank you.
Yeah, so and you're specifically talking about the acquittals in that particular circumstance. Thank you, Councillor Chowdhury. Through you, Mr. Wood, to
Mr. Arms.
To Mr. Arms. Thank you, Mr. Arms.
We do our best. Thank you through you, Mr. Chair, to work with the community groups to help them with their acquittals, emails. In person, I'm not sure about that. I would say it's primarily email based through the contacts that they've supplied during their application. But you can see there on in the report that we've made some significant progress over the last 12 months in terms of getting that outstanding acquittal down. So we're working on it. Ideally, we would like that number to be 0. So we'll keep working with them, and I take your question, and I'll talk with the staff, see what we can do to gather extra distance.
Thank you, Mr. Arms. Councillor Sherry, that satisfies that. Anything further, councillors? No, there being nothing, I put the, sorry, Councillor Wright, yes?
Thanks, Mr. Mayor. Probably preempting a little bit because there's an item in the next one as well. And in both of these, I like the idea that it's certainly it's showing the ones that are recommended, but the ones that aren't recommended and why, I think that's really important to explain that. And I know that Councillor Chowdhury's just touched on that with some of those acquittals that they're outstanding, but even the ones that don't, the reasoning as to why they weren't successful, I think is really important for community to understand. So I think that's a really important part of that report. So,
Yeah, good point, Councillor Wright, thank you. Anything further, councillors? Being nothing, I put that. All those in favour? Against? Declare that carried. Thank you, Mr. Wallace.
That's right. Such is life.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Goff. Councillor CCL 24/62, the Badenga Wind Farm Community Benefit Fund. Can I have someone move that way, please? Thank you, Councillor Ivey. Seconded by Councillor Burns. Councillor Ivey, do you wish to speak to this?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Look, just to say really how good this round of funding is. I think we had 19 community organisations apply for funding. I think 8 were successful, so there was a fair culling rate. All the applications were very good. I think the total value of applications over something like $250,000. But I think the ones that the 8 that were successful really did stand out above the others, and so I think it was a really good outcome. Perhaps one of the good things that happens is that the lifting of, I think at one stage the maximum application was $10,000, and now that's been lifted to 20, and it really has meant that people or organisations like the Rotary Club of Wellington, which provide a fantastic community service, are able to actually do something very worthwhile by building a shed to store. They've got gear scattered throughout the whole district, and this will allow them to put it within a localised and a single spot. So look, it's really I think this round of funding has been perhaps one of the best of the Badenga wind farms. So I'm very happy that to support this motion.
Thank you, Councillor Ivey. Other discussion or debate, councillors? There being none, I put that. All those in favour? Against? Declare that carried. Next item is the Double Regional Airport Airline Regular Passenger Transport Fees and Charges. Have someone move that way, please. Thank you, Councillor. You've got an alternative motion. Thank you, Councillor Black.
Thank you. It reads as such. 1, that council adopt the change of location for the April 2020.
Sorry, Councillor Black. We're on CCL 24/63.
No.
You were one step ahead.
Too keen to get out of here.
Thank you, Councillor Black. So CCL 24/63. You can still move that one if you'd like, Councillor Black. Okay. With such enthusiasm, moved by Councillor Black, seconded by Councillor Chowdhury. Councillor Black, do you wish to speak to CCL 24/63?
No, it was all pretty self-explanatory in there. Thanks.
Thank you, councillors. Any other discussion or debate? Councillor Wright.
Thanks, Mr. Mayor. Question on where we come up with the 6.2%. It's just a random number. How do we justify the 6.2% for the increase on those RPT fees or passenger fees? I see we've just gone up for a straight 10% on those RPTs for Western ports. Is that just a figure we come up with?
Thank you, Councillor Wright. You, Mr. Wood, to Ms. Bassingthwaighte.
We did look at the market, so just compare different ports as well as historic increases. So it just came around that figure and we rounded up. So that's why probably the odd figure, and ports didn't get the increase last year. So increased it because of the difference in the increase last year.
Thank you, Ms. Bassingthwaighte and Mr. Wood.
it doesn't quite go near the asset management required for the airport still. So anything you do on a runway or whatever is very, very expensive. So it's still only a partial contribution. So we do need to keep looking at how we can generate income at the airport.
Thank you, Mr. Wood. Councillor Wright.
And I'm assuming, we're looking at comparison of 23, 24, those RPT fees for similar airports. We're talking about our 24, 25. Historically, would it be safe to assume that all those other regional airports have also passed on CPI increases over the year? I'd imagine they will all increase as well. Would that be likely?
Thank you, Councillor Wright. Through you, Mr. Wood, to Ms. Bassingthwaighte.
Yes, that would be the assumption.
Thank you, Councillor Wright.
Thank you.
Yep. Any further discussion or debate, councillors? No. Councillor Black, you don't need a right of reply on that, I assume. Okay, thank you, councillors. All those in favour? Against? Declare that carried. Next item, CCL 24/64. Councillor Black.
Thank you. The alternative motion reads as such. For the venue for the ordinary council meeting April 2024. 1. That council adopt the change of location for the April 2024 ordinary council meeting to be held in the Wellington Council Chamber. 2. That council adopt the change of location for the May 2024 ordinary council meeting to be held in the Dubbo Council Chamber.
Thank you, Councillor Black. Have someone second that, please. Councillor Wright. Councillor Black, do you wish to speak to that?
No, thanks.
Any further discussion or debate, councillors? No, there being none, I put that. All those in favour? Against? Declare that carried. Next item, CCL 24/65, Investment Policy and Strategy Review. Have someone move that, please. Thank you, Councillor Wright. Seconded by Councillor Wells. Councillor Wright, do you wish to speak to that?
No, I'm fine. Thanks, Mr. Mayor.
Any other discussion or debate, councillors? Being none, I put that. All those in favour? Against? Declare that carried. Next item is CCL 24/66, question on notice, Dubbo Rescue Squad building. Councillor Black moved, seconded by Councillor Chowdhury. Councillor Black, do you wish to speak to that?
Just very briefly, thanks. So the reason I brought these few questions here is because I've heard a bit of chatter around town that the rescue squad, Dubbo Rescue Squad, was actually supposed to move out to the VRA facility at the airport, but they were still at their old premises on Cobra Street. And if it was the intention for them to go out there at the beginning and they haven't moved out there, and I understand that they would like to actually move out to the airport, then what's going on with that? We've got a building on Cobra Street that could be repurposed for something, that could be turned into a youth refuge, or there's any number of uses that we could do for that. But the space that the rescue squad was supposed to go into out at the airport, into the VRA area, what's actually happened with that? What's that being used for? Anyway, that's something that I'll be chasing up further, so that's why I brought these questions there, because there are opportunities that we could really put that building to, and the rescue squad apparently does want to actually move out to the airport, but there's a bit of a block there. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Black. Any further discussion or debate on this one, councillors? There being none, now remember the recommendation is just that the report be noted. So all those in favour? Against? Declare that carried. Thank you. Comments and matters of urgency. I'll go to the left this month. Councillor Burns.
Yeah, I've got nothing to report. Thank you.
Right, thank you, Councillor Burns. Councillor Wright.
Look, no, I haven't got much either, except to say that I'm doing the sister city visit in a couple of weeks, flying out of Dubbo, and with a couple of my fellow councillors, and yeah, look, from all accounts, the reports of people who have been before me, and some of the people who are going again this time. It should be a sensational trip. So yeah, absolutely looking forward to sharing some of our experiences when we get back next council meeting in April. Yeah, thanks.
Thanks, Councillor Wright. Councillor Goff.
Just a couple of comments. Just to congratulate the Dubbo Touch Association for another successful touch tournament. I felt like there was more people there this year, but maybe it was just because there was one coffee vendor. But once again, all I heard was great comments, great comment. The atmosphere was great. More fields were used. Yeah, it was just positive all around, all again. And so congratulations to the Touch Association. The Stone Festival is on in Wellington at the moment. So there's a bit of hive of activity going on in various locations throughout Wellington. The Cobloaf Festival was last weekend, but if you head to the Line of Waterloo, there's a giant Guinness out the front. It's quite impressive. And then there's markets and activity going on this weekend at Stone Headquarters near the showground. I also got to attend ALGWA, the Australian Local Government Women's Association conference last week at RIDE, which was, I really do like going to these because I get to spend some time with like-minded local government women councillors. We all have similar issues, and I managed to get myself onto the board. Go me, another job. But I'm really keen to get involved, to get more younger women and women to go again, to have another crack at council, and to get up to our 50% of women representatives on council this September. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Goff. Councillor Wells.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I have a couple of things. So it's not necessarily Dubbo related, but it is nationally related. So today marks National Close the Gap Day, and I'm not sure many people know that, but it is national. It's on the 21st of March every year. And look, it was launched as a collaboration between Australia's top public health organisations and agencies way back in 2007, and with headlined by Olympians Cathy Freeman and Ian Thorpe. Like, I could go on and talk more about that. We all know that we're trying and we're striving to close that gap. We're not. There's a few areas we are, but there's quite a few areas we're not. So as a community, there are significant things happening out here that impact on that, like domestic family violence and the removal of Aboriginal children into care. It's important that we continue to advocate to change that. Today also marks National Harmony Day, which surprisingly, it was launched, when was it launched? In 1999, and it was actually about racism, which I actually unpacked just today to understand what that looks like. And it was really interesting conversations where I had with some community members from here, understanding what that looks like, and how harmony is about the diversity of all of our cultures and the multicultural community, but how racism still exists. So I don't want to be a downer on this council meeting, but I just wanted to flag that Harmony Day is important and that we celebrate harmony across our community, and we do that. I too want to give a shout out to Dubbo Touch Association and the Dubbo Regional Council for an amazing tournament. I was fortunate to go down there and watch a few of the games, albeit terribly, terribly hot. I don't know how those kids ran around in that. I would have had a heart attack if I'd have run on the field. But they were amazing, just watching their skill at such a young age and how it changes every year, and they just continue to. And the fact that we've got it for 2 more years is a credit to Dubbo and Dubbo Regional Council for the work that they've put in. I know Dubbo Touch Association did as well. All of the cool things around that, the grounds were like those little dome things that were mist things were so great and so popular. Lots of mud underneath them, but the kids loved them and they cooled down. So I'm really excited to see what it looks like again next year and the year after. And having over 9.5, close to 10,000 people come to Dubbo for that 3-day event is going to always be good for Dubbo Regional Council. There's also National Bowls competition in Dubbo. I don't have the statistics. I think it's something like 1,700 people were brought to Dubbo. It's over a longer period of time, so that's happening. It finishes, I think, on the 27th of March next week. So it's great to see that Dubbo can attract these events. There's been, I'm not sure whether the community know about this, but I'd like to flag it with this community that we know that local elections are happening this year in September. People are making up their mind whether they are going to run or not. What I want to encourage is Kat Henway is a person that influenced my interest along with other influencers, but she's running and facilitating sessions to encourage local First Nations women to get into politics. So if you're interested, if you're listening to this council meeting, and you want to know more about it, I'd be happy to send that information on to council. I'm sure that they promote it. It's just another way to get more women into council, local government. And I just want to end on a really funny thing. So I've been tripping around the New South Wales for a bit the last few weeks. Where was I? Ballina. Went past the big prawn. And then I went past the big banana, and then I went past the big guitar. All these things. What could Dubbo do? What could we have? Could we have the big rhino? Have a think about that. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Wells. Councillor Black.
Just a couple of things very quickly, because we've got a fair bit to do in confidential. There was a report during the week in the paper about Moree getting the 13-point-something million from the state government, and there's a quote from the Moree Shire Plains Council Mayor Mark Johnston, and basically said that as a community we were owning the problem. We weren't ashamed of it, and we saw it as a wonderful opportunity. Chris Minns sat in that chair over there and listened and took notes and said, we'll come back to you with a comprehensive plan. And then on it goes, and he says, the Mayor continues, underpinning all of this is the social issue, and it's trying to turn those young children away from a life of crime and making life itself a positive deterrent. So they wake up each day and think, okay, I'm going to go to school, I'm going to go to play footy, I'm going to go get a job, and all these sort of things, Mr. Johnston said. I can compare and contrast that to basically the approach of this council 10 months ago in May, when we knocked back basically what they had up there in Moree, where my Crime Summit motion. Now, he said here, the Mayor continued, he said that the $100 million funding for 54 agencies to help in areas such as mental health and education are not working. So they got everyone there, they had a look at what was there, they totaled it all up and said, right, how can we better do this? And the PCYC is getting funding, they're getting a bail hostel, they're getting a whole heap of stuff, over $13 million. That might have been us had we not been ashamed and said, yes, we do have a crime problem and we want something done about it. So now other regional councils are left fighting over the scraps, including Dubbo, of less than 50% of that $26 million package, because we were too timid to actually admit that we've got a problem with crime in our LGA. Now, the Boxar stats came out, and I did hear the Mayor on radio and on his podcast talking about the Boxar stats. So I went through and did a little table here, and I compared the Dubbo LGA. You can actually break it down into postcodes, so 2830 for Dubbo and 2820 for Wellington, but the whole LGA, so this is Dubbo and Wellington and surrounds, we are 7th out of all the councils for domestic violence related assault. This is the rate per 100,000 people, not the total number, which I'll get to in a minute. Non-domestic violence related assault, we are the 3rd highest ranked LGA. Sexual assault, 20th highest ranked. Robbery, 5th highest ranked. Break-enter dwellings, 9th. Break and enter non-dwellings, 7th. Motor vehicle theft, 7th highest. Steal from motor vehicles, 7th highest. Steal from retail store, 3rd highest. Other stealing offences, 13th highest LGA. Malicious damage to property, 4th highest LGA. There's not many LGAs out there that are above state average for all of those broad categories. The lady from the Boxar told me. And when you actually look at some of the figures here and you break them down to every single category, Dubbo, 2830 postcode, is above the state average. And some of those criminal intent, 8.23 times the state average. I don't think it's good enough that as a council, I've never said that we can solve crime, despite some people putting that around and having people like to believe that. What we can do is we can advocate, like Moree did, we can advocate on a better way to the state government to get resources, and the federal government, because they have money out there for justice reinvestment and stuff like that as well. But we've missed the boat there now. Moree got the money that really should have come to Dubbo, and we're left fighting over the scraps. And when I look down here, break and enter non-dwelling, 2830 postcode, 4.64 times the state average. And to say that, well, we'll basically say that we should just have to put up with that because we want to get tourism to come to Dubbo. If we say that we've got a problem, if we ask the state government in a forceful way to fund us properly in the resources that we need, policing and other justice investment resources, diversionary resources that we won't get carnivals. Well, we've just heard that we got the touch footy carnival for X number of years. We've got the lawn bowls carnival and stuff like that. What will really hurt us is when you see, like on Facebook the other day, someone at a caravan park or motel had a couple of their kids' bikes stolen off the bike rack off the back of their four-wheel drive. That's the sort of stuff that'll hurt us. But we should be doing more. We should have done more. It's not too late. We really need to put some pressure on the state government to get as much of that $12 million as we can. Now, I'll very quickly just nearly finish up here. I did hear the Mayor talk about Dubbo's rate of a few different crime categories. This is LGAs against some other crime categories. And it was on his podcast and on a radio show. And he said about Central Coast that you're much more likely... Oh, Blacktown. We'll do Blacktown first. Motor vehicle theft. That, you're much more likely to get your car broken into or stolen at Blacktown, stolen here. Well, that was on the raw numbers. Dubbo LGA's got about 55,000 people. Blacktown's got 410,000 people. I just couldn't believe it. So I went there and I looked at the per 100,000. Per 100,000, Blacktown LGA, 199.9 per 100,000 people. The rate in Dubbo per 100,000 people is 507.9. I thought if you're going to cherry pick examples and try to do those sort of things with statistics, we've heard that there's lies, damn lies, and then there's statistics. The Mayor repeated that numerous times. Too right there is. Another one here, Central Coast LGA, the Mayor mentioned about the highest rate of sexual assault. Said you this many more times likely. Well, hang it, more likely in the Central Coast to be a victim of sexual assault than you are in Dubbo. Well, let's just have a look at that. On the Central Coast LGA, there's 350,000 residents. Dubbo LGA, about 55,000. When you look at the per 100,000, Central Coast 136.6 people per 100,000 victims. Dubbo LGA 192.7. So if we're going to cherry pick stats and try and say that other people are making Dubbo look bad, I can only assume that might have been talking about me. I don't know. You'd have to ask the Mayor. People can make up their own mind on that. Be very, very careful. I was good at maths at school, wasn't so good at English, but I did pretty well at maths, and I can read the Boxar stats. And just a very quick reminder of what my Crime Summit motion was from the other year. If we look at points 2 and 3, it was all about facilitating and hosting a Dubbo Crime Summit, focusing on effective and innovative strategies to reduce crime rates and getting the state and Commonwealth ministers here, just like they've done in Moree, other relevant stakeholders, and basically ask for money, which has all gone to Moree. So that's a bit disappointing, as is the pool, where people at school carnivals had to wait at Dubbo Olympic Pool for over 2 hours to get a feed. And at the PWSA Carnival, a few people reported to me, people from out of town were going down to Talbragar Street and over to the village hot bake to get a feed because it was taking so long because there was only one person running the canteen. So Belgravia really need to pick up their game in that department. That was never happening when Dubbo Council were running the pool and the canteen. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Black. Councillor Ivey. Ivey, microphone.
Can I just raise a couple of events that have happened in Wellington of positive outcome? The Vintage Fair was a couple of weeks ago. It was, as always, fantastic. People in from right throughout the whole state, and I think even some interstate people there as exhibitors. And when you're getting something like 25 or 24 Morris Miners and Mini Mokes coming up from Canberra and Sydney, camping out at or staying out at the Caves Caravan Park, I think, for 3 or 4 days. It really, it was just a great feeling. The street parade was terrific, and I don't know the full details of how it came about, but thank heavens the Fowler steam engine led the parade, and that was really well appreciated by the locals. Allied to that, I suppose, the other good thing it seems to me, just anecdotally, that the museum committee, the people looking at the historical society and the museum, have got a fair bit more enthusiasm. There's a few new faces there, some younger faces, a little bit more progressive, really wanting to make the museum something worthy of visiting, and I think they're succeeding. And again, there's a real desire there. I think I get the feeling they want to work with council to make the best use of the resources, the historical resources we've got in Wellington, and I think that's really good. And so I'd hope that over the next sort of 6-12 months, it won't be a quick fix or a short-term project and outcome, but I think we really are on a much better path now to get a good outcome. So just on the other thing is that I noticed, following on from Councillor Black's comments, perhaps the state government have announced the inquiry into rural crime, and I presume there was some terms of reference put out, and that we as a council will have the opportunity to make a very worthwhile and well-considered submission to that. So I presume that'll happen, and I look forward to being able to perhaps be a part of that too. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Ivey. Councillor Mann.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just a couple of local events I'd like to give a plug to. One is which the Mayor be able to tell us all about, the Tour de Auroch is just happening this week, which is an initiative of to raise money for Macquarie Homestead. Dubbo South Rotary is driving that event. There is a car raffle for a Toyota RAV4, which is going to be drawn in the next several weeks. There's only a few hundred tickets left in that. I encourage people to support that for the magnificent facility of Macquarie Homestead, who are looking after all the families of people that are unwell and getting treatment in hospital and need somewhere to stay while they're in Dubbo. The second one is a real feel-good, is the Sing Out Choir, Ian Gamble, Camilla and a team. It's on the 14th of April, 11:30am over at our magnificent theatre here. I looked on the website just before I stood up, and there's 19 tickets left, $20 a ticket. It's a dementia choir that these ladies have absolutely changed people's lives, given them a whole new social outlook, and I'd encourage anybody that hasn't ever seen them to go and have a look. It'll also be live streamed, but I can't. I think these sort of organisations do such a good job of the fabric of our wonderful town. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Mann. Councillor Shattery.
I'm good. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Shattery. Just a few quick ones. Just congratulations to Mr. Ryan and his team who helped me, the two engineers that Mr. Ryan lent me for the Western Plains Science and Engineering Challenge. You will be pleased to know that 2 council engineers and myself managed to beat the school students. So we're very proud of that. The bridge that we built out of balsa wood managed to withstand the greatest weight there. So it was good for the engineers to be there, for students to see engineering in practice, and also to make sure that the kids didn't beat us. So if we need balsa wood bridges built in Dubbo, we have got the engineers, Mr. Ryan, to build those bridges. Just on the sporting facilities, I was thinking about it the other day. In the last month, the Junior State Cup, Bowls New South Wales and the Golf New South Wales regional championships. So regional qualifiers, sorry, not championships, regional qualifiers. So fantastic for those sports. And following further from what Councillor Wells said, 880 bowlers were here. That's not their families, that's just the bowlers over the 2-week time frame. And this is not only the first time they've taken that outside metropolitan areas, but the first time they've included multi-disability championships with the state championship. So that's a fantastic couple of firsts there. One of the things that was significant from that was myself and Mr. Wood were down in Wagga and Albury 2 weeks ago for the Regional New South Wales quarterly meeting. And at that we talked about sharing some of these facilities and how we could get some of these events for regional cities, bring them out of metropolitan areas. Already Bowls New South Wales, who have never taken it outside a metropolitan area before, are talking about now we've got the contract for 24, 26, 28, and they're already having discussions about how they might take it to other regional locations in 25 and 27. So that's had a positive impact on all regional locations, which is fantastic. And following on from what Councillor Mann said, the Black Dog Ride was last Sunday. That was fantastic. 300 riders, myself included, went across to Mandurah and then off to Dunedoo, then back to Dubbo. And the Tour de Auroch, which I am participating in at the moment. I started the day today about 4:30am in Lightning Ridge and ended up in Brewarrina, and then Brewarrina Council was good enough to dash me across to Dubbo for the council meeting and then back there again tonight and then continue on from there to Burke tomorrow. So it is a great fundraiser, and Councillor Mann may not be aware of this yet, but already given our funding's hit $100,000. So that's just on the one part of that. And we will probably at the end of this ride be up over the $800,000 that particular ride has contributed to Macquarie Homestay. So fantastic. And the last one was the comment that Councillor Wright made about the fact that myself and Councillor Chowdhury and Councillor Wright will be in Korea and Japan over the next 2 weeks, or parts of that anyway, and some community members as well. And I just want to remind the community that the community members that are participating in this, councillors that are participating in this, are doing so at their own expense. Every time these visits happen, these delegations happen, people assume that councillors contributing towards that. The thing that I like about these trips the most is not just councillors contributing their own money and not council paying for it, but community members, people that are just members of the community come along and join in. And so I think it's very unfair if they get accused of taking council money, which they don't. It is that they're all at their own expense, and they're representing Dubbo as well. So that is a fantastic, or I hope it will be a fantastic trip. I'm sure it will be, but a good contribution from those as well. So thank you. That brings us to the end of the main part of the meeting. Under Section 10A of the Local Government Act, the next items being CSE 24/7, CCL 24/68, 24/69, 24/70, 24/71, and IPEC 24/11 and CCC 24/16 have been identified as likely to be discussed in a closed session of council. Can I have someone moves into confidential session, please? Thank you, Councillor Chowdhury, seconded by Councillor Wright. Any discussion or debate? No, we've had no applications from members of the public, which there are no members of the public here, but no other members of the public to make their representations regarding whether the meeting should be closed to the public. No members of the public there. So any questions or debate, councillors? No, I put that. All those in favour? Against? Declare that carried. The streaming will now be turned off. Any members of the public will be asked to leave the chamber. The chamber will be reopened and the live stream restarted after deliberations on this matter with the resolutions to be made public. Thank you. Okay. Council's return to open session at 9:10 p.m. Welcome back. Please refer to the following slides for the motions from closed sessions of council. The first item is IPEC 24/11. Next item is CCC 24/16 as per the resolution on your screen. The next item is CSC 24/7 as per the resolution on the screen. Next item is CCL 24/68, quotation for the supply of network server and storage infrastructure. Next item is CCL 24/69, Dubbo Regional Council Animal Shelter tender for construction. Next item is CCL 24/70, Belgravia Leisure Contract for the management of Dubbo's aquatic leisure centres. And the last item is CCL 24/71, Dubbo Regional Livestock Markets Business Structure Service Review. There are no further items for consideration of the ordinary council meeting, and I declare the meeting closed, the time being 9:12 p.m. Web streaming has now been completed. Thank you for your attendance.